If you've ever thought about flipping houses but have no idea where to start, this video is for you. In this masterclass, I'm going to show you exactly how beginners can flip their first deal in 90 days or less, and how to turn that into a profitable house flipping business for years to come. Hey, my name is Alex Martinez, and since 2012, I've been investing in real estate. Collectively with my partners, we've been part of well over 1,000 transactions and built a multi-million-dollar real estate business. I've also helped thousands of students across the country learn how to wholesale and flip houses, many of whom have gone on to do their first deals in 90 days or less. Now in today's house flipping masterclass, I'm going to teach you how to find profitable deals consistently, every day of the week, how to analyze properties so you always buy at the right price, which is very important as a fix and flipper, how to hire and manage the renovation like a pro so you're not an amateur making mistakes, all leading you to being able to start flipping houses for yourself after watching this video. Now be sure to like this and save it because I'm going to be covering 14 years of golden nuggets that I've learned from trial and error, and then be sure to download the free resources I'll share throughout this masterclass. There'll be a ton in here. And first off, I'm going to cover how I did my first house flip, which actually took less than 90 days. So I'm not talking about theory here, this is reality. And I'll show you exactly how this deal worked, the ins and outs of it, and what really happens behind the scenes when you fix and flip a property. So let's dive in. In June 2015, I ended up buying my first house flip that I took on the majority of the work for. This was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family house with 1,358 square feet located in Poway, California, which is in San Diego County. And as you can see, the condition of the property wasn't that bad. It was just a bit outdated with some repairs needed, but it pretty much needed a full cosmetic renovation. And finding properties consistently like this one is a vital task of any professional fix and flipper, but it can also be challenging for some. So the first thing you have to do is get out there and do whatever it takes to find the deal. Some people like to door knock, put out bandit signs, or spend a lot of money on marketing, but what I did was utilize the MLS and built relationships with real estate agents in order to get this deal. Now the MLS is the multiple listing service, and it's the database of all leads on the market in your area. Now here's how I found this deal. So we found this house flip from using our MLS approach to getting on-market deals. This is what we've been utilizing for 12 years now, and is hands down one of our favorite strategies. And we saw this house pop up for sale in the MLS at $500,000, and we looked at the description and the photos and thought that there might be some distress going on with the property. So we ended up calling the agent as soon as we could after we saw it was listed, and the agent was open to working with us, but the agent actually already had another buyer in mind. So the agent and the seller actually accepted another buyer's offer first, but guess what eventually happened? The buyer got cold feet and couldn't perform, so we ended up submitting a backup offer with the agent at $360,000. Now that wasn't a bad initial offer considering the property was listed at $500,000, but what ended up happening was we ended up negotiating and finally getting the property under contract officially at $390,000. Now before you get a house under contract, there are 2 things you need to find out about the property before you get it under contract. First, you need to find out the house comparables, and second, you have to find out the renovation cost for the house. So first, what are comparables? Comparables are similar properties to the property you're looking to buy that will give you an accurate idea of what the property should sell for in its best possible condition. And we call this price of the property in its future value, it's called the ARV, which means after repair value. So how do you run comparables? Well, here's our real estate skills comp criteria we've been using for years to find comps and to determine the ARV effectively. So you need to find sold renovated properties in the best condition possible and make sure that they've been sold within the last 6 months, within a half-mile radius from the subject property, that's the property you're analyzing, within the same zip code and city, plus or minus 20% of the square footage of your subject property, and then preferably within the same neighborhood. And my goal is to always try and find at least 3 comparables, but always try to find more. The more the merrier, because this will give you more confidence when analyzing your numbers. Now in this deal, in this scenario, I found similar houses that sold around $520,000 and some that sold near $540,000. And I'll put some of the comps up here on the screen. So for my property and my comparables, I knew confidently we could sell this property at $520,000 all day. And I knew we could sell it for even higher, but a pro tip is that you never inflate your ARV. So I like putting my ARV at a price that I know it will sell at all day. That way in the future, if it sells at a higher price, I'm very happy. Now real quick, if you're getting any value from this video, I'd really appreciate it if you just like the video. It's the easiest way to support our channel. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. We're always in there replying back to you. Now after getting your comparables and getting your ARV, it's now time to get your renovation costs. Now the best way to get your renovation costs down to the T is to meet with your preferred general contractor of your choice and walk through the scope of work, which is every item that a house needs to be repaired in order to achieve the ARV. How I found this contractor was actually from a referral from a fix and flipper friend. This was a fix and flipper friend I had worked with and acquired many deals with beforehand, and so he was happy to share his favorite contractor with me. And another pro tip is this, it's the importance of relationships. Always be a phenomenal and great person to work with, and it will always come back to you. Just like it did in this situation where that fix and flipper referred that contractor to me. Working with a general contractor, we were able to get them out to the property and we got the quote for the deal and we're able to get the total estimated renovation cost to $40,000. So nothing beats getting the contractor actually out to the property and going through line item by line item just like we did. So now you found the property, you got your comparables, and you have your renovation costs. Now it's time to analyze the deal to understand the purchase price of where you need to offer. Now we always use our deal calculator to analyze deals and the information we get from the agent to make the best offers possible. And so initially the agent let us know that $360,000 could potentially work. And we knew at $360K using our calculator that we had roughly $66,000 of estimated profit after running our initial numbers pretty conservatively. Now, when we had to raise our price and negotiate to $390,000, we had a $34,000 estimated profit on the deal. And this was all right at the very least. It was still a good number that we liked. And when I say conservative, I meant that this was going to be a shorter renovation, but we estimated that the hold time of the deal would be 5 months, when really it might be 4 months or around there. And also I was still running the numbers at my all-day ARV at 520, where I still thought that it could sell higher. And we always like to aim for at least $30,000 of profit on a deal. So at $34,000 of profit estimated conservatively, I felt super comfortable with it. Now this deal calculator, it's what we use on every deal and what we give to our students when they flip houses. Now here's what most newbies do when they're starting out and want to fix and flip houses. They use something called the MAO formula, which stands for maximum allowable offer. And it's paper napkin math, pretty elementary. Now what happens when you use this formula, you usually come to a maximum allowable offer that's way too low of a price, and you're gonna have people like myself and my students be able to offer higher than you and still have a profitable deal. So an example of the MAO formula is that you take 70% of the ARV, which is $520,000 in this case, that should equal about $364,000, and then you minus the repair costs needed, so $40,000. So at this point in time, the MAO formula says that your maximum allowable offer should be $324,000. So a lot of beginners who use this rule would have never been able to compete with our $390,000 offer or even our $360,000 offer that we had to come up from. And this is a big reason why we love using our deal calculator on each and every deal. Now you have to get the property under contract. So when you're getting a property under contract, you need to put in an earnest money deposit down. And the earnest money deposit is a good faith deposit that makes your contract valid. And if you'd like to use the contract that we like to use when getting houses under contract, then I'll leave it in the description below where you can download it and use it. Now, as always, check with a local attorney to make sure it's good to go for you. Now, after you got the property under contract, it's time to get funding for the deal. Now, for this deal, I use funding from two types of lenders, a hard money lender and private money lenders. Now, a hard money lender is in the business of lending money on fix and flip deals, and they want to lend you money on your fix and flip deals. This is how they actually make money. Now, for this deal, the hard money lender lent $312,000 at 10% and 2 points. And I needed about $126,000 more in capital to cover closing costs and holding costs and repairs. So I borrowed $76,000 from one private money lender, $30,000 from another, and $20,000 from one more. And I met one of my private money lenders at a Real Estate Investing Association meeting as well. I met another private money lender from college, and another lender was a friend of a friend. So after I found my lenders, we ended up closing on the property and we started renovating the house. And we had a great general contractor on this deal. His name was Michael, and it took him about a month to finish the renovation. So let me show you some of the photos of the property that we renovated. So here are some photos during the renovation. And then here's the before and after of the exterior. So for the exterior, we ended up widening the driveway, which increased the curb appeal of the property and made going in and out of the house much more enjoyable. And we cleaned up the landscaping. We added fresh grass, plants, and mulch. And then we also repainted the house and put in new lighting fixtures. Then for the living room, we installed new hardwood flooring. We scraped the popcorn ceilings to give it a new modern vibe, added in a new ceiling fan, added in new baseboards, and repainted everything. And then for the kitchen, we really lucked out. We were able to keep the existing cabinets and tile flooring, but made sure to really polish everything off. Now for the guest bathroom, we moved to the sink to create more space and added a new bathroom vanity with a granite countertop. And we really turned this bathroom into a beauty from what it was before, as you can see. Now for the extra bedrooms, this wasn't too crazy. We put in new carpet, new sliding mirror closet doors, scraped the popcorn ceilings, new fixtures, and repainted everything. Now for the master bedroom, we put in new carpet, new paint, new baseboards, scraped those ceilings to make it more modern, added in a new ceiling fan. And for the master bathroom, we created more space, put in a new vanity with 2 sinks so that any couple would enjoy it, new fixtures, new tiles, new paint, new everything. And we really transformed this master bathroom into the luxury bathroom it needed to have to sell it for top dollar. Now for the pool, we had to drain this, replaster some parts, fix tile, and fix the plumbing equipment. And then we also took out the diving board because it was pretty old and just wanted to remove it for liability. Additionally, in the backyard, we added mulch and gravel, cleaned up the landscaping. We repainted the fence where we could and then replaced certain pieces that were too worn down. We really turned this backyard from something that was full of weeds into a usable backyard for entertaining and having summer barbecues. Now, after all renovations, we ended up actually spending a little over $42,000 rather than the estimated $40,000. And once again, this took about 4 weeks of work, maybe a little bit over. Now, as you can see, our cosmetic renovations really made this house pop and stand out, and it became a beautifully renovated property. After we finished renovating the house, it was time to get the house on the market and to get it sold as soon as we could at the right price. Now, in situations like this, it's very beneficial to have your realtor's license. And at this time, I was a licensed real estate agent, so I was able to list this property myself and save over $15,000 that I would have needed to pay another real estate broker or agent if they listed it. And a pro tip is to always list your property in a range so that you can bid the price up when people come in at a lower price. And that's exactly what we did here. Now, we ended up getting the property under contract within that range at $535,000. Now remember, my estimated ARV was $520,000, so $535,000 was great. And after closing on our HUD, the closing document, it said we had about $122,000 of profit on there. But after paying back our additional private money lenders, we ended up with a little over $61,000 in true net profit. So that was my first house flip, but let me show you now the 4 vital tips that really allowed this flip to be successful so you can potentially make a profit like this one from your first house flip. Tip number 1, I highly recommend doing a cosmetic fixer for your first house flip. If you take on a fix and flip project with a huge $200,000 renovation job where you have to fully gut the house, move walls, add square footage, and fix the foundation, you're going to be in for a rude, stressful awakening. And that's because the higher your renovation budget, the more things that can go wrong and the longer the renovation is going to take. I mean, the more walls you're going to have to open up, the more things you're going to find that are wrong with the property. Instead, I recommend that you take on a house that mainly needs cosmetic updating, such as new flooring, new paint, new carpets, and nothing needing major structural work. So doing a cosmetic fixer project like the one I showed you today will greatly increase your likelihood of success. Tip number 2, be conservative and realistic with your numbers. When you have a very conservative hold time, meaning the estimated length of your project, and when you have a realistic ARV that's not inflated and a reasonable repair budget that's not deflated, then you're generally going to be really happy with your results when you complete a fix and flip project. In my case, I had a conservative ARV at $520,000, and this allowed me to confidently go into the deal knowing that it would sell at that price all day with the potential of selling it at even a higher price. Now, at the end of the project, we did get an offer of $535,000, which was $15,000 above my estimated ARV. So that was a huge win. Now for my repair budget, I had a very close estimate. My total repair budget actually turned out to be $42,000 and my initial estimate was $40,000. And that's not too far off. So When you're conservative and realistic with your numbers, usually the worst thing that happens is that you actually hit the numbers you estimated for, or you're very close, which should be a profitable deal. And the best thing that can happen is that you complete the project faster, you come in under budget on renovation, and your true ARV turns out to be higher than it actually is, which then increases your profit. Tip number 3, I recommend learning how to wholesale houses first before fixing and flipping. Wholesaling houses is the process of getting the house under contract, so that means acquiring the contract, but then not doing any of the fixing and flipping. You're actually just selling the contract to a fix and flipper. So in a wholesaling scenario, you get to validate your assumptions, meaning your numbers. You get to build relationships with other cash buyers and learn from their mistakes. And then when it comes down to doing your first fix and flip, you can piggyback off their contractor crews to make sure you have a great contractor, just like I did. Now what this does is it minimizes your risk of losing money, it minimizes your risk of finding a bad contractor, it minimizes your risk of not knowing your numbers, and greatly increases the likelihood of success and a profitable fix and flip deal for you. And tip number 4, don't spend tens of thousands of dollars on marketing to acquire your first house flip. Where a lot of beginner fix and flippers go wrong is that they immediately spend tens of thousands of dollars on marketing like bandit signs and direct mail in order to get deals. Now what we recommend is using the MLS to find on-market property just like this one, because it doesn't cost any money in marketing to find a deal like this. And additionally, keep in mind, on the MLS, a property is listed for sale, and what you need to know is that the list price is flexible. So for example, this property that we bought, it was initially listed for sale at $500,000. But we bought the property at $390,000, which is $110,000 below the list price. And some people are going to say, hey, this can't be done, you can't do this. But we and our students have gotten deals like this time and time again and still do. If you want to learn how to get deals just like this one and learn how to get started wholesaling and flipping houses while working with real estate agents without having to spend any money on marketing, then be sure to check out our free training at realestateskills.com/training. And we'd love to help you get your first house flip, just like we were able to help Stephanie, one of our students, get her first house flip and even her second one. I hope you got a ton of value out of this. Be sure to check out realestateskills.com for any of your real estate needs. And please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed today's video and want to see more content all about real estate investing. So now it's time to go out and get your first house flip. Talk to you soon. All right, now you've seen what a real house flip looks like from start to finish. And the next question most people have is, how do I actually get started doing this for myself right now? So in the very next section, I'm going to break down with my good friend Stan, who's been able to scale to over 100 house flips a year. We'll cover the best and fastest way to get started flipping houses step by step. And within here, I'll cover how to consistently find these deals all across the nation and how to get 100% of these deals funded, even if you don't have the capital to buy this property yourself. Let's dive in. We're going to be covering 6 steps on how to flip a house, 6 simple steps. And I'm here with Stan Gedlin, who's flipped over 1,000 houses, been involved with over 1,000 house flips over the last 14 years.
That's right.
And so I'm pretty excited to have you here because we're going to be riffing back and forth today on these 6 steps so that anyone who's watching will be able to flip a house at the end of this video.
Yeah, and I'd like to say too, besides having the 14 years of experience, and sure 1,000 sounds like a lot, I think more importantly, I've done it in 3 completely different price points, 3 completely different states and markets, so this knowledge should apply to anyone.
Yes, Stan, you have a world of expertise on flipping houses. We've done dozens of flips together as well right here in San Diego. You've done them across other places. And what's great about that is we're going to be able to teach timeless principles in this video that work in any market across the United States.
Yeah, and when I got started this last time, starting my own company, I literally moved to a place I've never been before, didn't know anyone, didn't know the market, and just started this exact process from scratch.
And I do want to mention one little story. The first house flip you did when you moved to South Carolina, you lived in the basement for a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I got started, like most people, I didn't have a lot of money. And I actually had money to either buy a house to flip or buy a house to live in. Well, if I bought a house to live in, there's no way I can make money because I couldn't buy a house to flip. So I had to live in the basement of the house I was flipping so I could have a place to live while flipping. That was my only choice. And I had to borrow like the most expensive money, do whatever I needed to get it done. So
yeah, you have that whatever it takes mentality.
That's right.
That's what it takes to get it done. And one thing we'll be talking about in here is you don't need to know 100% of what you need to do. As long as you know the majority of what you need to do. And personally for me, as long as I know 51% of what I need to do, I feel confident in order to take action. And that's allowed me to progress, to evolve as a real estate investor. as opposed to thinking I need to know every little thing.
Yeah, on that point, when I moved to start my own company to flip houses, yes, I've been involved with hundreds at that point, not quite 1,000, but I've never actually involved myself in the construction process. So I knew the 51%, how to find a house, how to analyze it, how to find the money for it, but I've never renovated it. So I knew enough just to start.
All right, let's dive into it and cover step one. And step one is fund it. Now, most people think that they need to find the deal at first, but you know what? If you don't have the financing, if you don't have the money to buy the deal, you can waste a lot of time because then you'll find the deal and then you can't actually fund it. So step one is funding the deal.
Yeah, especially if you're going to go through the MLS Pro Wholesaler program where you're going to be finding a lot of your first deals on the MLS. Realtors, as part of their process, have to pre-qualify you as a buyer, which means having proof of funds or proof of some sort of financing. So even before you buy or find your first deal, you have to have that ready.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about the different types of financing you can secure. And let's conquer one fallacy real quick. Some people think that you have to have your own cash to buy a house, or you should use your own cash to buy a house. And one thing we've learned as investors doing a lot of deals is, let's say you did have $500,000 and you bought a house with that money. Well, now you're limited to only that house if you don't have other types of financing. You really inhibit your ability to scale. And so what we've seen from our experience is that the best investors have financing sources. So different companies and or people that you can borrow money from so that when you do one deal and you put $500,000 into it, guess what? You have another financing source and you can put money into that deal and another deal. Otherwise, if you just use your own cash, you're just going to be inhibited.
Yeah, it's kind of like with wholesaling, in rehabbing, the speed of capital is important. The more deals you can do, the more you can turn your money, the more money you'll make. So like you said, in your example, if you have $500,000, in most places in the US, you can maybe do one project, right? And let's say you do one project, $500,000, you'll probably make a $50,000 profit. That's 10%. But if you used your money as a down payment for like 3 projects, you might make 10,000 less per project, but you end up with 120 in the same period of time as only making 50.
Absolutely, and that's a textbook example of scale, what you can do when you have economies of scale. And now, so let's dive into the type of financing that you can get. My first fix and flip deal that I did, I used a hard money lender. And I think for anyone watching this video, if you want to get started flipping houses, probably you're going to use a hard money lender or a private money lender. But a hard money lender, these are companies and or people in the business of lending money on your real estate, lending money for your deal. And they want fix and flippers, right? They want more business. And just a quick caveat, we teach a lot of our members, our community, to actually wholesale houses to get that transactional experience of working with other fix and flippers and cash buyers. And now if you start wholesaling, you can actually use that as leverage and bring that to a hard money lender. So they see your transactional experience, they've seen you've done deals, they've seen you calculate an ARV for a property. Because when I was able to get one of my first hard money loans, I leveraged my wholesaling experience. And they're like, oh, this guy's legit. He's done 30, 40, 50 deals. Like, he's good to go. Like, he gets to our best tier of funding.
Yeah, not only that, like most hard money lenders care more about that you found a good deal, right? Because worst case scenario, they can take it back and still make money. So if you feel inefficient because you've not done any deals, keep in mind hard money lenders almost care more about the deal itself than your level of experience. That's why they're a great first fit for you.
Yeah, and it's an asset-backed loan. Like they're lending on the deal. And with a hard money lender, typically they'll be in the first lien holder position. So they're basically going to give you a mortgage for the property.
Yeah, not only that, they will not make you personally guarantee your personal house, your personal assets. So worst case scenario, things go wrong, the house goes back to them and your personal finances stay intact. You're not going to lose your personal home, your personal money. These are non-recourse loans. What that means is the loan is only tied to this one house. It's not tied to anything else you own.
And when we talked about your journey to South Carolina doing that first rehab deal, you used a hard money lender?
Yeah, I mean, it was really expensive, but I didn't have any other choice. And, maybe I could have gone to some friends and family, tried to borrow some money, but, I felt more comfortable borrowing money from a company that professionally lends and they know what the risks are than putting my family and friends' money at risk before I had some success and felt comfortable asking them for money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that trait about you, and I follow that. I second that as well. And there's so much learning from working with hard money lenders that you can get. How do they structure the deal? What type of paperwork do they use? And so when you're ready to evolve to private money lending or using private money lenders, you learn so much. You learn about the interest rates, the fees, everything along those lines. It makes you a better real estate investor in the long run.
Absolutely. Most people start with hard money lenders, and as time went on, a lot of these companies became more experienced, more professional, and some of the rates they were offering are actually lower than private money, even close to traditional banks. So when we got started, those hard money loans were 13, 15, 16%. By the time I got 5 years into this business and where rates are today, they were at the same price, if not cheaper, than like private money.
So let's talk about those rates. I mean, for anyone starting out, it might be 10, 12, 13, 14% annualized typically. So if you borrow $100,000, let's just say it was a 12-month project to keep it easy, 12% interest, you're going to pay $12,000 in interest on that $100,000.
Yes. And unlike a regular loan, they only make you pay the interest, not the actual $100,000 back. So when you buy your home and you have a 30-year mortgage, every year, every month, you're paying a little bit of interest and you're paying a little bit of the principal, which is the actual equity in the home you're paying down. Well, with a hard money lender, because they know cash flow is key for any investor, you only pay the interest. So the payment, although it's a higher interest rate, it could actually be lower than a mortgage for the same amount.
Yeah, perfect. So we have the interest, you're paying on a monthly basis, and it's just interest only for a lot of these lenders. So verify that. And then origination points. Talk about those, because that's important to consider when buying a property with a hard money lender.
Yeah, typically a hard money lender will charge you 1.5 to maybe 2.5, sometimes a little more if they're a smaller company that doesn't do a lot of loans. And what points are basically percentage of the total loan amount. So if you're borrowing $100,000, they might charge you 1.5% to 2%, which is $1,500 to $2,000, and that's cash you have to bring at the closing table to get the loan closed.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it on the fees. Maybe some have some appraisals. Each hard money lender is a little bit different, so you need to build a relationship with them. You need to understand their fees. Some don't have appraisal fees, some don't have any paper processing fees, but just know that the main fees are going to be those interest payments and then the origination fee.
And typically out of all of our lender types, besides private money and cash, they'll be able to close relatively quick, as soon as 7 days.
Yeah. That's why I just always say they're in the business of lending money. Hard money lenders are in the business of lending money to fix and flippers. Yeah. And it's congruent. It's easy to work with them. You're not talking to someone who doesn't know what to do when you bring them a distressed deal that you can make a profit on. They're in this business of lending, and they want more business. Hard money lenders make money by lending money, and that's important to understand if you're just starting out, because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to raise money. I don't know who to get it from. They want to give you money if the deal is right.
Not only that, when you're getting started, a lot of times they'll provide you a letter saying you're approved for up to this much, so you can use that when making offers, showing that you're already pre-approved.
Yeah, and especially on market, right? Like you mentioned earlier, agents are going to want to see that proof of funds. So one great way to get proof of funds is build a relationship with a hard money lender, and you get access to their proof of funds. They'll give you an approval to use their proof of funds up to a certain amount, which is typically going to be the purchase price of the property at the very least, so that the agent can see, Joe or Jane can bring all the money and close on this deal. And the great thing about hard money lending too is a lot of agents see it to be as good as cash. That's my experience. You're going to still close on time. When we're dealing with distressed property, typically you want a quick closing time. And a lot of these fix and flippers can close on your timeline. And so we like to look at hard money lending, and we'll get into private money lending, but that's as good as cash. All right, awesome. So let's talk about finding hard money lenders. How do you find them? So one thing we've done on the Real Estate Skills website, if you go to realestateskills.com and look in the resources section, you'll be able to see some of the top hard money lenders across the nation that we approve of, that we've worked with. So you can go there, check those hard money lenders out, and see if they lend in your state. Now, additionally, I also want to mention that you can find local hard money lenders in your area by attending Real Estate Investor Association meetings. These meetings, when I started out 10 years ago, I would attend all the Real Estate Investor Association meetings that I could within an hour or 2 hour radius. And this is so I could build relationships with fix and flippers, cash buyers, contractors, but also the people that are there are hard money lenders. And when it came time for me to borrow money for a fix and flip, I had already seen this hard money lender several times. He knew who I was, he felt comfortable with me, and was some of the easiest money I was able to get because he already knew me, right? I've shook in his hand, we've ate some snacks together, had coffee, and I just can't stress the importance of building those local relationships.
Yeah, hard money lenders are a pretty common vendor at these real estate association meetings. They like to pay the group money so they can pitch their hard money services there. So they are a great resource and a great place to find them. And now we want to get into talking about private money. Private money is any company, individual, friends, family that give you money to do your fix and flip project.
And the difference about private money is that there's a lot more negotiation room. You're typically the one, or at times you are leading the charge on the negotiation. Sometimes you can dictate the terms, and it's more about you presenting an opportunity to the private lender to make a better interest rate on their money than other investments. So maybe talk about the differences with private money and maybe how that's evolved for you.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely nailed it on the head as far as the being in charge of the negotiation. A lot of people that do want to invest in real estate but never have, they don't know what the interest rate should be, how much money to give you. Is it 100% of the deal, 80% of the deal? Ultimately, it's up to you to educate and negotiate. I could tell you though, from going to these real estate investment associations to find hard money lenders, one of the things I've also found is there's a lot of realtors in these groups. And these realtors not only want to list your houses for sale, help you find houses to buy, they're actually one of the best private money lenders in real estate. And the reason for that is they know the numbers. They sell houses every day. They look at houses every day. So unlike someone that's never funded a real estate deal, friends, family, anyone you work with, they understand the market. They understand housing. They know if you're looking to borrow money for a fix and flip deal, it is a great deal that you found. They'll feel comfortable and actually want to get the commission from you by listing it for you. So it's a great trade-off. You give me the money to buy a house. You can actually make money on commission by representing me to purchase it. But also, hey, if you give me money to fix and flip this house, I'll use you to list it and then you'll make another commission. And that way, sure, you're giving me money at a 10% or 8%. It's not as high as hard money, but when you add the commission, your annual return jumps to 15 to 20%. That's how I've used that strategy to find my biggest group of private money lenders, which are realtors.
That's an awesome golden nugget right there. Most people aren't thinking about leveraging realtors that you work with already that understand the numbers to borrow money from them for these deals. So that's another benefit of working on the market with these MLS deals. It's something that we've started doing well over a decade ago, and then those relationships just continue to provide fruit for us.
Yeah, and another great transition from hard money to private money, if you're just getting started, sometimes you don't even have the down payment for hard money. Yeah. So if you meet a realtor who wants to give you money, you can use their money as the down payment for the hard money, right? So now they're still going to get the commission. You can offer them 10, maybe a little more of an interest rate because they're going to be in second position behind the hard money lender. So it's a little bit riskier of an investment. But when you combine their commission with a smaller investment to you, that means their return is going to be in the double digits, 30, 40%. Yeah. So it's a great deal for a realtor to help you get started. And also if you don't have cash, you can use their money or another private money lender you find for the down payment for a hard money lender.
Yeah, that's great advice, great nuggets. And now with hard money, right, we might have a 12% interest loan, 2% origination points. The cool thing with private money is that you may have no origination points, so you don't have to pay anything to borrow that money.
Correct.
And then what are some of the rates you've borrowed private money at that can make it more desirable than hard money?
Yeah, I mean, it's gone anywhere from 6% up till 12%. So it really varies, but it depends on your negotiation.
Yeah, and that's a big difference. Like 6% is what, 50% of 12%. Like that reduces your costs on borrowing money on the deal. And when you're flipping a house, you want to mitigate risk. Like we talked about in the beginning, you want to be conservative. And so if you can reduce the interest rate by 50%, then that's just going to make your deal much more likely to win in the end. And so it's all these little things that add up to a successful deal.
Yeah, especially some of my best, again, private money lenders were agents, and they were more concerned about getting a lot of deals So if they lend to me at lower interest rates, that means I can make more money, more deals will work. Rather than trying to get 12% and now the difference between 12 and 8 is a deal killer, say, hey, I'll give it to you at 8%, but I'll get way more listings. So it's a win for everybody.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, negotiating, like, hey, work with me here, scratch my back, I'll scratch your back down the line. One piece of advice on private money lending that I like, that I've heard from a mentor in the past was, Alex, you ask for money, a lot of times you'll get advice. Ask for advice, a lot of times you'll get money. And so if you're taking people out to coffee or to lunch, asking them advice on business deals, what you're doing, and you show this opportunity and how it's working for you, people that are high net worth individuals that want to lend and make money on their money may offer to give you money. Some of my first private money lenders were either friends who are older than me, entrepreneurs, people I met at networking events, and it really developed through like friendships and just talking about what we're doing, and they thought that flipping houses was really cool. They wanted to be a part of it, and they offered to lend me money. And so that's how it started for me on my private money lending journey.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to sit down with someone and say, look, I'm finding houses at 30% below market value, right? And how many people wouldn't want to be in a safe investment like that?
And a lot of times, it's better than the stock market or better than a savings account. So that's the benefit to private money lenders. If they just have their money sitting in the bank account, losing money to inflation, this is an inflation hedge for them.
Yeah. And look, when you're getting started, if you need to offer a percentage of your profit too, that's totally okay. I've done that, right? Anything to get started. I mean, if I had to offer friends and family and other investors 10, 20, even 50-50, but I have no money out of pocket, I have no personal risk, to me that's fair sometimes, especially when you're new and getting started and just need to prove the concept.
All right, so hard money lending and private money lending are the top two money sources if you're starting out as a real estate investor who wants to flip houses, but also down the line, like you're gonna be using hard money lending, private money lending. Private money lending is actually where you wanna be getting as much capital as you can to scale your house flipping business, because that's where you can get the 6%, 7%, 8% loans. So you may start with hard money lending, assist with private money lending, and then hopefully you get to the point where you have all private money lenders funding your deals.
Yeah, and I can tell you another golden tip. How many times I've talked to a seller that I want to buy their home, and this is a house that's not their personal home. They didn't really need the money. Maybe they inherited the house or it was a secondary house, and these sellers turn into my longtime private money investors. I still have people that I've bought their houses and they've been investing with me for 5, 6, 7 years. So you can turn your sellers into your private money lenders as well.
Boom. So you can raise money from almost everyone.
Everyone.
So that concludes step one. That was fund it. And once again, we were beginning with the end in mind. We want access to that capital. We want to know how we're going to fund the deal once we actually find it. That way we're ready to rock. Now let's get into step two, which is find it. So now that we've raised the money or we have access to the money, now we want to find the deal. And we'll give you 2 great ways on how to find deals. So something that's been tried and true for us for well over a decade has been the MLS offer system. It's been one of our favorite ways to get deals in our local market and virtual markets, meaning different markets across the nation. And even when you first moved to South Carolina, that first deal you did, you got it under contract from San Diego using the MLS offer system strategy all the way in South Carolina, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I found my first deal in South Carolina, and that's what actually sped up my timeline. Right, my timeline to move to South Carolina was my due diligence timeline. I only had like a week and a half of inspections, so I had to pick up and move to South Carolina before my inspection period was over. And we drove into South Carolina the last day of the inspection period. And that was my walkthrough.
Yeah. How long was that drive?
We did it in like a day and a half. It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
There we go. So the MLS offer system at its core, what it is building relationships and contacting listing agents on the MLS that are listing distressed property. Now, the Association of Realtors has came out with multiple reports at the end of the year. It's anywhere from 88 to 92% of all houses, all real estate transactions happen on the MLS or with a real estate agent.
Yep.
And so we've been using that as our main acquisition source for over a decade.
Yep.
And the best thing is, right, if you're starting out, you want to flip your first house, is that you don't need to spend $1 in marketing to be able to get an MLS deal under contract, which is why it's also so lucrative.
Yeah, I mean, if 9 out of 10 deals in the whole country happen on the MLS, why would you want to compete with all the people going after 1 out of 10, right?
Exactly.
Most people don't focus on the MLS because they think, oh, it's already listed, it's on the market, there's no opportunity there. But that's absolutely wrong. I still do deals every single year on the MLS because there's always deals there.
Absolutely, and we're always doing on-market deals. And today, as we've evolved, not only single family, but we do on-market deals for multifamily, commercial, all these different types of deals. And it's the same principles that if you learn with residential property, with houses, how to build relationships with agents that are selling distressed property, you can transfer those skills to the 176 unit apartment buildings. You can transfer those skills to the 90 unit office building.
Yeah, look, I could tell you the last 2 deals I bought in what I do, first being the last apartment complex I bought was listed on the MLS for 1.4 million, right? It was a multifamily deal on the MLS. Most people don't list multifamily on the MLS, so almost no one's looking. And I have all my search filters set up to make sure every multifamily deal on the MLS, as few as it is, comes to me. I closed on this deal on April 21st. It was listed for 1.4 million. Right, I offered and got an offer accepted at $1 million, a $400,000 discount. Right, so I found my last multifamily deal literally on the MLS.
Yeah.
And also our company and us, we just moved into our office building. The property was listed on the commercial version of the MLS. Right, so we made an offer. It was listed for $2.4 million. I think we got our offer accepted at $2 million. So the strategy works for commercial office, works for multifamily, works for single family.
Absolutely.
I still use it today.
Yeah, and we've gotten together dozens or well over 50 deals under contract, majority of them below the list price. And that's something that you need to understand. Most people's perception of the MLS, of an on-market deal, is that whatever the list price is that it has to sell at that price. And that ain't the truth. Stan just mentioned this property got below the list price.
For people to think of the MLS listing price is very different than the pricing we see every day in our lives. So you go to a restaurant or you go to a store, the price is what it is. When it comes to real estate on the MLS, the price is the realtor's suggested price. It is what they're advising their seller that they think the house is worth. But the market ultimately dictates what the value is. So if they list it for $200,000 and every single offer comes in at $150,000, that house is worth $150,000. So it's very different. It's just a suggested price by the agent, what they think it should sell for.
Absolutely. And one analogy I like to use is the Craigslist analogy of if you ever buy anything from Craigslist, like a couch, and let's say it was $500, you could offer $300 for that thing.
Absolutely.
It's really like the list price. It is what it is, but then you add OBO, like or best offer to it.
Right.
And that's the way to think about the MLS. It's the realtor's suggested price. And from what we know too, from working with a lot of realtors, not all of them understand every single thing about real estate. Not all of them know how to actually analyze a property or what the correct price is. And so if you're using the MLS, and you understand that, there's a lot of amateurs out there that stray away from the MLS because they're afraid of that list price. So if you're not afraid of it and you put in an offer that you feel comfortable putting in, that you've analyzed, that allows you to get a profit on fix and flip deal, there's nothing lost from that. And one thing that we've talked about before, you shared with me, is if you don't feel uncomfortable submitting your offer, then it's not at a low enough price. And that's such a timeless principle.
Yeah, and look, a lot of times it brings a lot of value to the agent to explain to them how they can convince their seller why the price is not where it should be, right? So the last multifamily deal I bought on the MLS, it was listed at 1.4 million, right? But the interest rates had gone up so much. So I had to show the agent that if I bought the multifamily deal at the price that was listed, I would lose money every month. And I showed them how to tell their seller what the correct price was. All right. Also, a lot of times the information on the MLS tells you last time the home was sold and what the seller paid for it. So you know where their margin is. So that is another great way to negotiate those deals on the MLS because you know what they paid for it. In this case, I knew they paid, $100,000 less than my offer just a year ago. So even if I'm offering $400,000 below the asking price, they're still making money.
Mm-hmm.
And like you teach in the Pro Wholesaler program, I asked what was the motivation of the seller. And in this situation, the seller lived out of state, they had other businesses, and they thought this was a passive, easy deal. Well, it wasn't. So they just wanted to get rid of it because they were literally driving to another state to manage it. So I found out the motivation, found out they were still going to make money at my offer, and I felt comfortable offering 400 grand below asking price.
There we go. Great point, Stan. And so the MLS is absolutely a gold mine. And if you're interested in the MLS offer system, how to do it, how to learn about it, we create a free training at realestateskills.com/training. And we'll actually put that link down below as well so you can check it out, learn everything you need to about the MLS offer system. And now let's talk about the next avenue of how you can find deals and get deals. Let's talk about wholesalers.
Yeah, look, especially when you get experience fixing and flipping houses and you build a lot of relationships and you've been known in your area to do it a long time like I have. I've been doing it for 9 years in my area. Pretty much everyone knows me that's in that space. I don't even have to go out and solicit any deals. If I don't want to, I don't have to go on the MLS or do any other marketing. I get deals sent to me literally every day. And that is the power of building residual relationships with wholesalers who are spending their time, money, effort, going out there, finding deals, filtering, negotiating, understanding what you as the buyer need, and sending you all those deals. I can pull out my phone right now and show you 4 different deals I've received in the last week.
Absolutely, Stan. And some ways to find wholesalers is you could join an awesome community of wholesalers like we have in our Pro Wholesaler VIP program. You can attend Real Estate Investor Association meetings. You can hop into other Facebook groups. I mean, they're all over the place. And the more active you are, the more rubbing elbows, attending these association meetings, the more these wholesalers will be able to find you. And also, if you just start closing deals too, some wholesalers will be calling you, just like how I've been reached out several times after I fixed and flipped property.
Yeah, and if you're already in the Pro Wholesaler VIP program, please get my info and send me your deals.
Awesome. So one thing I do want to mention though is how to treat wholesalers.
Yeah.
Because wholesalers provide a lot of value. I understand that, you understand that. And the more that you can educate a wholesaler or tell them what you want, the better deals that they can bring you. And also, what we teach in our program is that wholesalers, the best cash buyers when dealing with wholesalers, typically don't care what type of fee you make. I think it's really important to understand because if you're a cash buyer, meaning like a fix and flipper, if you're actually flipping property, you're a cash buyer, buying these properties for cash from wholesalers. But you want to treat that wholesaler with respect. If they want a $10,000 wholesale fee and now you're trying to skimp them and turn that $10,000 wholesale fee into an $8,000 wholesale fee, it's like you want them to get fed. You want them to make money. You want them to win on this deal as long as you're still hitting your minimum profit criteria. So that way they continue to bring you deals. Because if you try to go around a wholesaler that's getting 3 deals a month under contract and you go around them or you're always negotiating their fee, they're not going to want to work with you again. And if they can do 36 wholesale deals in a year, they're not going to work with you again. And what's that opportunity cost of a wholesaler not wanting to work with you anymore? So when you treat wholesalers with respect, and what you said, relationships, almost similar to realtor relationships that can continually bring you deals, that's when your business can really flourish. And I don't think most people understand the importance of relationships when it comes to wholesalers.
Yeah, I could tell you the second wholesale I ever did in South Carolina, I was gonna make a $10,000 fee. I showed up to the closing, and this is the first time the buyer saw how much I was gonna make. And he said, hey, I can't pay this price to you anymore. I'm only gonna be able to pay you this. Because he now knows I'm getting 10 grand, and he tried to negotiate me down to $1,500, which he did successfully because there was nothing I can do. It was the day of the closing. I couldn't renegotiate with the seller. The seller was already there. So, and I ended up walking away with $1,500, but that buyer never got a deal for me again. And I wholesaled dozens of deals that same year. He will never get one again. So he tried to make an extra $5,000, but he missed out on hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds, maybe over 7 figures, million.
Yeah. Also, I think it's important to understand the thought process and motivations of a wholesaler, right? Their main goal is to make as much money as possible. So when they get a deal under contract, let's say for $100,000, they know that project needs $50,000, right? And it'll sell for $250,000. That leaves a $100,000 gap. So wholesalers' job is to decide how much can I charge between the $150,000, which is the all-in price, and the $250,000 sales price. What is the least that a buyer is willing to make? All right, so that is their thought in negotiation. But you want to work with wholesalers that'll leave you enough profit on the deal so you don't do one deal, make very little, and never want to work with them again. So you want to find wholesalers that leave enough profit in a deal to make you want to come back to them. I've had plenty of wholesalers that I've worked with where they try to squeeze the profit of the buyer. Yeah. And now it gets into this frenzy. All these buyers are showing up, overbidding each other. They end up making no money and go out of business. And there's plenty of wholesalers that try to squeeze the most they can, which is fine. For me, that's not a good fit. I like having those personal relationships where the wholesaler leaves me some money because they understand it's not guaranteed profit. It's a risk that I take by buying the house, renovating it, having to wait 6 months. They get a guaranteed profit like that.
Yeah.
So that's why those relationships and understanding how each one of you works is important.
Perfect. I absolutely agree with you on everything, 100%. Obviously, you can start seeing there's this principle here with working with realtors. If they're lending you money and you give them the listing, you're scratching their back, you can get a better interest rate. And with a wholesaler, if they're able to give you a better fee or lower fee and you get a larger profit, there's less risk for you. There's always this value exchange going on. And sometimes it can go one way. Sometimes, hey, this wholesaler really needs to eat. And you didn't want to pay $15,000, but you help them out, and you say, hey, the next one, maybe you bring that value back to me. Yeah. And it's just with all your relationships, though, but the whole value chain is important just to continue to do that.
Yeah, I mean, last week was the last time I bought a wholesale deal from someone, and I literally told the wholesaler, hey, use this contract to assign it to me, because they weren't sure. When you send me the deal, I would normally redact or hide what your contract is with the seller. I don't need to know that. Yeah. Whatever you make is great for you, right? So I was helping this wholesaler how to do contracts, which attorney to close, because if I add that value to them, they will bring me deals forever.
Love it. So, okay, we covered how to find the deals, we covered the MLS offer system, and we covered working with wholesalers. Now let's go into step 3, which is analyzing the deal. So we want to underwrite the deal. What that means is understand how much the renovation costs are going to be. What's our purchase price going to be? What are the financing costs going to be? Are we using private money lending or hard money lending? We want to understand all the numbers as much as you can. Understand this is still an estimate, right? And the goal isn't to be perfect here. There's no perfect estimate, but to be as close as we can be so that you can make a decision whether you want to buy this deal. So now we find the deal. Let's talk about analyzing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say in the analyzing, there's a lot of ways to do it, and there's a lot of other experts that can help you do it.
Yeah.
Some people, like to use an appraiser, which is a traditional way of doing it. Some people always like to just let an agent tell them after repair value, especially if they're the expert in that neighborhood. We always rely on comparables and using the Rehab deal calculator. Mm-hmm. But one thing I will always say, one of my guiding principles when analyzing a home for sale is I never analyze a home, no matter how much bigger or better it is, in the highest sale in that neighborhood. Yeah. For me, that is too risky. Yeah. I try to use the highest sale in the neighborhood as my ceiling. Yeah. Maybe if that house sold for top dollar, I can get that top dollar, but I don't try to estimate that I'll get a lot more, because especially if that above that last sale is where all your profit is.
Yeah, because once we start guessing how much above the highest price sale in the house, like our ARV will be, the after repair value, now you're just speculating. And what we don't want to do here is speculate. Yeah. We don't want to assume the market's going to keep going up. That's where we see, we've been doing this for a long time. So we've seen a lot of fix and flip companies lose their shirts and go under because they were never conservative. They were the companies that would find the highest price sale in the area and say, hey, mine's going to sell 25, 50K above that. And so we don't advise that. We want you to be conservative with all these numbers, and some good principles on determining the ARV. We want to use past historical sales, past historical properties, and compare apples to apples. So if we're dealing with a 3-bed, 2-bath property as our subject property, the distressed one that we got under contract, and it's 1,200 square feet, we want to find other 3-bed, 2-bath houses in the same area that are 1,200 square feet. You hit a gold mine if you can find model matches, like the exact same property. That's not always the case. Sometimes it is. But you want to find comparable properties that have been sold, renovated, typically within the last 6 months, and the closer to actual today, the better. If you can find comps within 3 months. But those are going to dictate the value of your property, what it can sell at once it's renovated. That's what I've been doing for 10 years, and that's my favorite way to do it. It's been pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I can say, being a very smart 2.8 GPA student, that the reason fix and flipping does so well and so many people can do it is because it's literally a formula that you follow. It's not a speculation. We're teaching you to analyze and use actual comparable sales to figure out closely what is the home going to sell for. Like you said, you will normally not find a model match, but a lot of homes will be close enough to where you can understand that the home will sell within a range of that home.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people fix and flip homes, because it's not a speculation. It's not that risky if you follow our formula.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's some basic math. And you just got to stick to some tried and true principles in order to get it done. So for the ARV, the after repair value, we want to use past historical sales of properties. The more the better.
Yeah.
Typically we want to stay within half a mile radius.
Yep.
We want to stay within the same neighborhood, same zip codes if possible. We don't want to be pulling comparables from 2 cities over that are completely unrelated. If our house is in a suburban neighborhood with neighbors on both sides, we want to find other comparable properties in a suburban neighborhood or the same neighborhood with houses on both sides. You don't want to go find a house on a farm with an acre of land and say, hey, this suburban house is going to sell with this acre of land, this house with an acre of land sold for. So just that's what we mean by apples to apples.
Yeah, and the way I've actually been underwriting and analyzing all of our deals is using the Rehab deal calculator that we and our students use. And it gives you a pretty good idea of how close you're going to be to that sale price if you use, like you're saying, very similar homes in a similar neighborhood.
And so that deal calculator, we've been using it for 10 plus years. We use it to underwrite every single deal, get our numbers down to the dollar, the cent. That way we feel confident taking action on the deal. And let's talk about the other 2 big numbers. Next one being the repair costs.
Yep.
So we have to analyze for the repair costs. My favorite way to analyze for repair costs, once you get comfortable with your area, is a dollar per square foot rule. If we're dealing with cosmetic renovation,
Yep.
so we're not adding square footage to a property. We're not necessarily fixing cracked slabs. We're fixing the carpets, the kitchen, the bathrooms, painting exterior, interior. Those are my favorite type of rehabs because they're quick and easy, or easier than harder projects or more lengthy projects. But also, if it's your first flip, we recommend you do a rehab that is mainly cosmetic. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And typically we see these renovations, cosmetic renovations, what, 30 to 50,000, kind of in that range.
Yeah, and look, honestly, as sexy as TV makes fix and flipping, if you find a good deal, you can literally just clean it up, throw on a coat of paint, and put it right for sale. To me, that's a renovation. And if you can make anywhere near as much as spending 4 to 6 months, that's probably a better strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So renovation, like you said, can vary from completely gutting a house down to the studs, adding a second floor, adding garages, to just cleaning and throwing a coat of paint.
Yeah, and this is where people can get lost in the sauce on the renovations. Oh my gosh, how much does an HVAC system cost? How much does this tile flooring cost? They get stuck in paralysis by analysis because they're trying to figure out what does every single little thing cost. And this is why I like the dollar per square foot rule. And typically, in San Diego, when we work on rehabs, it's ranged from $30 to $35, $40 per square foot of the property.
Yeah.
And now when we go to higher price points, that dollar per square foot number increases. But it's a really quick and easy strategy when you're dealing with a cosmetic renovation to quickly analyze your repair numbers. I'm talking about in 10, 15 seconds.
Absolutely.
Then you can put something under contract right away. Most people get caught up and I've seen people spend days, weeks trying to analyze repairs on a property, and then they're wondering why they don't get any deals under contract. Right. They can't underwrite it quickly.
Yeah, and look, sometimes you might have to do that if it's a massive project.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you don't have to do a huge renovation to get a nice profit. And unfortunately, a small renovation is not sexy enough to be on TV.
No.
Most of my biggest profit deals are where I did the least amount of work, right? Because it's when you analyze and choose which option to do, whether it's the wholesale, which is just clean it up and sell it, which is a small renovation, or a big renovation, I also consider time, right? If I have a lot of projects and I can make a quick $20,000, $30,000, or I have to renovate for 6 months to make 40 or 50, is it worth giving up $20,000 to make that kind of money in just 30 days?
Yeah.
Probably. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to analyze and make decisions on how much work you should do to fix and flip a house.
Now that we have the ARV, we have the repair costs. It's kind of like a waterfall. Like I like to put the ARV at the top.
Absolutely.
Now we have the repair costs. And then we have our purchase price. So when you're finding the deal, you're negotiating, you're able to do a lot with those 3 numbers, because now if you understand your purchase price, so let's say you've used the MLS offer system, you negotiated with the agent, you got it under contract. Now if you've talked to hard money lenders or private money lenders, you can calculate your interest rates. You can actually Google how much does insurance cost for a house in my particular area, and roughly figure out the rough costs and how much profit you can make from this deal and if it's worthy to take down.
Yeah, and also just a quick tip, we can use the 10% rule for closing costs. when you add a realtor commission, taxes for the time that you've held the property, utilities, insurance, that comes out to be about another 10% you take away from that top number as a quick guide to how much you'll end up with profit.
You know, one of the best sayings in real estate is you make your money when you buy.
Correct.
Right? So that's what we're doing.
100%.
We're making sure we make our money when we buy, and we're not hoping that the market goes up. There's no hope here. We're trying to eliminate hope. You know, we're trying to have as much certainty as possible and eliminate uncertainty here so that you're not guessing you're going to make money once you buy this deal. That's any deal that I felt like that, where like, oh man, I hope that, you know, I hope that the market increases and, you know, this profit turns from 20 to 40,000. It stirred me into trouble, because when you do a renovation, things come up and typically don't go to plan exactly. And so one deal I had when it was 20,000 of profit, I hoped that it would reach 40,000 of profit for the sale. Guess what? It needed a new HVAC, which we overlooked. You know, that happened. And then it sold $15,000 less than where we thought it was going to sell at. And it was a break-even deal that took 6 months.
Wow.
And was a fun. And I shouldn't have even done that deal from the analysis. But that's why you want to be conservative. If I wasn't conservative, I should have just wholesaled that deal, made $5,000 or $10,000,
Correct.
and not have 6 months of break-even. And I got a few extra gray hairs because of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're getting started, one of the simplest rules of thumb I'll say is that you should make $1 in profit for every dollar of renovation you spend.
Yeah.
That usually gives you enough contingency in case things go wrong, and things don't even have to go wrong for that number to go down, right? You might list a house and get an offer for the exact price that you thought, but that buyer needs closing cost help, right? That's $5,000-$6,000 gone like this. The deal might take just an extra 2 months. That's another $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 in interest gone. All right, so those numbers get eaten up quickly. That's why we're saying you should always have at least a minimum of $1 per square foot. If you're going to spend 30, you should make at least 30 when you're first getting started.
Yeah, and that's what I feel anyone should aim for starting out. You spend 30, try and make 30. You spend 40, try and make 40. You spend 50, try and make 50. As you can see, the number goes up on the net. This is net profit. Let's talk about that. This is not gross profit. This is not before you pay back your investors, your hard money lenders. This is net profit that you want to make per deal. And you're going to be pretty much in the black if you do this, you know, the majority of the time.
Higher the number of the renovation, the more risk there is.
Yes.
Even if it's the same amount of renovation, right? Painting a 3,000 square foot house versus painting a 1,500 square foot house, right? If you lose that painter and you need to bring another painter in, it's going to be that much more expensive to have another contractor come in and try to help you out. So the more expensive and larger scope of work, the more your profit should be, right? Because a bigger house will just have, even if it's similar issues to a smaller house, those issues just cost more to repair. All right, not even if you or your contractor screwed up. Let's say you install an HVAC system in a big house, all right? Everything went well, it got installed, but now your HVAC gets stolen, right? To replace it is very expensive, way more in a bigger house than a smaller house. That's why your profit margin has to be bigger on bigger, more expensive rehabs, because a lot of things can go wrong and you want to have enough cushion. And that's what you want to explain to wholesalers, realtors, and anyone you work with. It's not that you just want to make more money, it's the risk is higher.
Yeah. Every single, you know, the bigger the renovation, the more time, the more walls to open up, the more things that you can find, the more variables. So 100%. So we're not trying to do $1 million house flip or $1 million purchase and make $30,000. You don't want to do that. We're talking about probably about houses we can buy for $500,000, $400,000, around there. That's where 30, 40, 50,000 is acceptable. But even once the purchase price goes higher, you know, bigger renovations, you want that larger profit to mitigate that risk.
Yeah, and also on those bigger houses or more expensive houses, right, when you do a price reduction, right, on a cheaper house, a price reduction, like a $250,000 house as an example. If I list a house for $250,000 and it's not moving, I'll maybe drop it to $239,000. But if I list a house for $550,000 and I drop it, I'm dropping it to $525,000, $25,000. That's another reason why you want that profit margin higher.
Awesome. So we nailed analyzing the property. That was step 3. Now let's go to step 4. Buy it. Buy the property. We've got to buy the property. Now the cool thing is, since we started with the end in mind, we already know the financing that we're going to use to buy this particular property.
Yeah.
But let's talk about on the front end, right? Because we're going to be buying the property. Eventually we'll be selling the property. There'll be a new buyer. Let's talk about the things you need to do to make sure that you buy this property.
Yeah, first of all, the day of closing, you have to make sure you go through that house one more time.
Yeah.
First of all, is it still there, right? If you're buying a house that's supposed to be empty with no tenants, no homeowners, have they moved out? I've definitely trusted someone, bought a house, people are still living there, and now there's nothing I can do, right? And now I have to go through the legal process of evicting them, costing me thousands of dollars, months of time.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, the day of closing, you want to show up and do that final walkthrough the morning of closing. Make sure the house is empty. If you're thinking you're getting appliances, the appliances are still there. Everything is in the order that you expect.
And once we do that, we can buy the property. And day one, day zero, you should start the renovation as much as you can, right?
Yeah.
Get the team in there, go right into the rehab. So the buying part's pretty easy. Now that we've done all the underwriting, I would say, we have the fundraising. We're going to close either, depending on your state, with escrow, title, or an attorney, depending on what state you're in.
Yeah.
It's kind of about 50-50. 50% of the states use an attorney, 50% use escrow or title.
And to make sure that you can actually start the renovation day one, like you're saying, have the utilities turned on the day of closing. You want to call your utility companies, your water, electric, and gas, and make sure you schedule the utilities to be transferred to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they take a long time, right? So you want to make sure you call before the closing day, but have it scheduled after, right? And not only that, you want to make sure you have insurance immediately the day you buy it, not the day after, right? Not a week after. Something can happen the day you buy it. And I've had that happen. I bought a house, it was empty. It was immediately broken into that same night. I lost an HVAC. All right, so things happen the day you buy it. So you want to have insurance and your utilities turn on as well.
Perfect. So once we have insurance, we have utilities, we've closed the deal, we got the financing, we get the keys.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the next step.
Yep.
And the next step is fixing it, actually fixing the property, also known as rehabbing or renovating the property. Now that we've got to this point, I mean, this is a very detailed oriented process. And if you've never flipped a house before, you don't know what you don't know. There are a lot of little things that you need to do in order to get a property up to spec, be able to sell to current market trends. And so let's dive into the renovation. Kind of what's the process from beginning to end?
Yeah, I mean, really simply, day one, usually if you're doing a big renovation, you need to make sure you get permits, right? So you have to have contractors that are licensed and can pull the permits, right? Before you get the permits and get the process started, we typically will order a dumpster to arrive at the property so the trash can be put somewhere, not just piled outside and get us big fines from the inspectors. And also a lot of times if you're doing a big project where the toilets and bathrooms are being ripped out, you need to make sure you order a portable toilet. That's part of the requirement to pass any inspection, right? And it's the right thing to do for your contractors.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to pee on the side of your house.
That's not fun.
No, and I've had that happen, so ask me how I know. So first days, they come in, you're going to walk through, tell them what to demo. If you're going to rip out a lot of old stuff, they'll demo out. Usually takes a couple of days, and you might have to rotate a few dumpsters, right? Then usually your framers will come in, and this will be from the perspective of a big, large renovation, just so we can hit all the steps. Your framers will come in, get the house ready, put in any new rooms, open any walls, clean up any damaged wood. After the framers are finished and have passed their inspection, you'll move on to your mechanicals, which is your electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, right? So once those are done, and they all normally have their own inspection, in some areas they all are inspected at one time. Sometimes they're inspected by different inspectors, so those can take quite a while depending on where you live. Then you'll have to insulate the house. A lot of areas have professional companies that do it relatively easy and quickly, so that's not normally a big deal. Once the house is insulated, that's where you're probably taking about a month to sheetrock it, to paint it, right, to get everything ready. And you want to make sure at this point you have your windows and doors installed so you have heat and air, because normally sheetrock needs heat or air depending on the weather outside to dry or cool or whatever. Right? Once the house is sheetrock, normally then you're putting on your trim, which is like your doors, your baseboards, and your crown if it's a little bit more of an expensive home. Then the home gets its paint, right? Once the home is painted, and you want to keep in mind when you're doing a big renovation, you want to go from the outside wall to the inside, right? So that means your framing, then the mechanicals that go inside the walls, then the insulation, then the sheetrock, then the cabinets. So you're working your way in. And same thing from the outside. You want to go from top to bottom. right? The most important thing to do is make sure the house is not leaking and damaging everything in there. So you put on a roof first, and then you work your way down. So that includes siding, windows, and at the end, landscaping and driveway. Now back on the inside, once the house is painted, you can put in your cabinets, your tile, your showers, all that kind of stuff, and bring back your mechanical subs to install your toilets, your sinks, your appliances, right? Normally at the end, we try to do carpet and flooring to make sure it doesn't get scratched or dirty. And then right after that, it's normally time to clean up the house and get it ready for sale. So that is a brief overview of the renovation process.
Kind of said it better myself. Now, when you're starting out and you don't know any of this, some great people to work with are general contractors and or a project manager. I know when I started out, I used general contractors that I found other investors that use these general contractors that liked and trusted them, and that made me feel more confident using a general contractor who isn't just a retail general contractor that's not familiar working with investors. I vetted this contractor and the other contractors to make sure that they had worked with investors. So
that's a good point.
how would you go about finding a general contractor that could help you with this renovation?
Yeah, look, when I got started and I moved to the area, I literally didn't know anyone, so I didn't even know who to ask. Normally, if you know people and you live in an area for a long time, you have friends of friends that had work done. So that's a good place to start. But if I were moving or starting in a new place, I would drive around and look at other projects and literally just stop there and talk to the contractors, give them our 30-second elevator pitch and see if they want to come work with us and if they're looking for more work. Because also while you're there, you can see their quality of work, right? And a lot of times they can refer you other contractors for the different trades you need.
One of my favorite things to do is that stand, drive around, find the properties that are being renovated, go to the property, you may see subcontractors or the general contractor, and you can find out who that GC is at the property and see if they're open to doing additional work, and you can also vet their work as well. It's just a fun thing to do. If you like real estate, you're in the business of flipping houses, and you're looking at newly renovated property in your area, it's what you should be doing.
Yeah, and I've met other investors that own those houses before that turned into friends, colleagues. I wholesale them some deals. I partner with them to do some deals. So yeah, you might even meet the owner of the house who's another investor, and that could turn into a big relationship. I've had some of my best relationships just like that. Other people doing projects in my area, and I find out, hey, they only have money to do two, but I know this hard money lending, private lending setup where I can fund a lot of deals. So how about I bring you deals and you do the work? Because look, the quality that you're doing here is awesome.
Now, what I do want to share with our community and the audience is a good golden rule of how long the renovation should take. That way you know what to expect. One kind of rough rule I've used is that for every $10,000 in renovation, it should take about a week of work. And so, for example, if I have a $30,000 rehab, that's about 3 weeks. I'm going to say it's going to take about a month to rehab it. It's a rough rule.
Great rule of thumb.
But that rule helps me understand this ain't a 6-month renovation. This ain't a 3-month renovation. Standard team should be able to get this done in 30 days, which I think is super important. It might be different per market or per GC. It might be $8,000 to $15,000 a week. But I think it's really important just so you have the right expectations and you're not having your projects take 8 months when they should be taking 4 months.
Yeah, and also this helps you estimate on the buying side how many months to put into your rehab deal calculator. Which will tell you how much interest you need to reserve in the bank, because you normally have to make monthly payments. So you'll know, in this one I might have to hold it for 2, 3, 4 months, so I need at least that much in the bank.
Yeah. So when we analyze our deals, we don't only understand the ARV, repairs, all the other costs, or purchase price, or holding costs. We analyze how long we're going to hold that property for.
Absolutely.
Because every day that goes on during a renovation, you're paying more in utilities, you're paying more in insurance, you're paying more in taxes, you're paying more in the actual financing fees. And so every day counts when doing a renovation, and that's why you just want to get it done as fast as possible, but of the quality that is needed as well. You don't want to skimp on quality, because then at the end of the day, that can reduce your buyer pool and just have more negative effects for you.
Yeah, and look, houses sell a lot slower during certain times of the year. So by knowing that, I'll know when the house will generally be ready for sale, right? At the end of the summer, a lot less people are buying because they don't want to move with their kids when school's about to start. Between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, because there's so many holidays, people are going on vacation, sales just stop. So I know to motivate my contractors or build in that extra holding cost to be cautious. If I know it's going to finish around the beginning or middle of the holidays, I'm going to add an extra month of holding because I know it's going to cost me extra, and no one's buying around Christmas typically.
Yeah, it's important to note, sometimes the markets are cyclical, or generally they are around winter, holidays, summer, there's less kids in school, more families are willing to move. It's easier for families to move when their kids aren't in school. I mean, could you just imagine like taking your kids out of school, putting them in another school in February?
Right. Spring market is the buying season. That's when the most homes sell. So absolutely, timing is super important. Knowing when the house will be done and how long it's going to take, you can add those extra buffers in to maybe negotiate lower. Because holding costs do affect your profit.
Now, we've renovated the property. We've got it to where it needs to be, up to current market trends. Now let's talk about step 6, getting it ready to sell and selling the property. I mean, this is the funnest part of it. You know, we've gotten to the end all the way to step 6. Let's talk about that. Selling it for top dollar.
Yeah, so hopefully, the project went well and the house is getting ready to sell. Usually the last thing you do is a final clean and landscaping. Makes the inside and the outside just look beautiful, right? So those are the last 2 things you want to do on the inside and the outside, because you want to work your way out of the house. Same thing when you're doing your construction. On the exterior, it's top down. On the inside, it's outer walls to the inside. And when you're finishing, it's from the house back to the street, right? So the least amount of people will drive on the lawn, park on the lawn. For some reason, no matter how big your driveway or the street is, contractors love parking their trucks right on your grass. That's why we say do landscaping last. Now that the house is cleaned up, the landscaping is done, this is when you're typically getting in touch with your realtor and talking about the strategy. If you're working with a good realtor, they can guide you through this process.
Yeah, and this is why it's important to work with the appropriate realtor on this. You don't want to work with a normal retail realtor who's never worked with an investor. And one reason why we like to work with investor-friendly agents in this particular area is we like to negotiate the commission down on the resale side, which adds more profit, net profit as well. A lot of my flips that I've done, instead of a 2.5% commission in California, I always negotiate that down to 1.5%, because I'm telling them, hey, I'm going to be bringing you more properties. I'm serving this up for you on a silver platter, and I've never had any agent turn that down.
Yeah. Look, also, understanding the different companies that agents work with will allow you to be a better negotiator. A lot of agents today will work for a brokerage that's taking maybe only a 10% split. So they're going to get a big part of your commission, versus you're working with an agent in a more traditional brokerage that might split it 60-40. So negotiating is more difficult because they're getting less money. Or a broker that's working in a flat fee brokerage, they're getting, they're paying maybe $500 per transaction, so they get most of the commission. That tells you how much you can negotiate. So understanding where the agent works, what their splits are, will allow you to negotiate as well.
Great. So we've got the agent. We're selling the property. We're probably going to put it on the market at our ARV that we analyzed. In most markets, the listing agreement is probably going to be about 90 days or so. Some agents may try and tie you down for 6 months on an exclusive listing agreement, but we recommend to do 90 days, because if they're not selling that property in 90 days, something's going wrong, right? Like there's something wrong with the property, there's something wrong with that agent, there's something wrong with the marketing. We have to figure out what that is and create that fix in case the property's not selling.
Yeah, like before the 2008 financial crash or the housing crash, 6 months was common because there was a lot of inventory, homes would sell slowly, so that made sense. But since 2008, there's been a low amount of inventory. That's why now is a great time to fix and flip, because the United States will need decades to fix their inventory crisis, right? So an agent should not need more than 90 days. If you list the house at the right price, you have the right agent and markets it, you will not need more than 90 days. So that automatic 6 month is just a default from decades of agents working in normal markets. But now we're in a time where inventory is and will be low for the foreseeable future.
And whatever agent you use, I mean, immediately, as soon as you put that house on the market, you want them holding open houses. You want as much traffic as you can, foot traffic, neighborhood traffic, going to your property to get as many offers as you can, and for them to see this new product, this new design that you've just brought into the neighborhood. And one of the first houses I flipped, I also got this awesome feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm reducing crime rates in the area. I'm actually increasing values of property for all the other neighborhoods in the area. Absolutely. And it was this feeling that was unanticipated. And you've been able to do that at scale. I've been able to do that many times over again throughout the years. But there's this pride, the sense of pride that comes once you're at this stage. You know, all this hard work, it's a lot of hard work, and you really get rewarded for the value you bring. And it's all these little things that end up being a great product. And you know, neighbors come by and say, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Thank you so much for what you've been doing. And then also, yeah, their prices are going up as well, so they're happy.
Yeah, I mean, when the first house that I bought that I lived in, I think the highest price point in that neighborhood was probably $200,000. All right, so there was just not a lot happening. There's a lot of abandoned houses. You know, by the time I finished, the houses were selling at $500,000 because I focused on one neighborhood, and I actually did a strategy called well, just trying to improve the whole street. So I put 6 houses under contract on the same street because I knew I can increase my own values by buying the whole street, which I did. Right. So I picked my own neighbors by me buying the houses, me renovating them, improving the whole street. So there's a lot of cool strategies when you're getting into these neighborhoods to, like you said, improve the values of everyone. And the neighbors were happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's the buy the block strategy.
Yep.
All right. So now that we're selling the property, we're getting offers in. I mean, there might be FHA loans. There may be conventional loans. There may be cash offers.
Yeah.
There may be VA loans. You mind just briefly talking about those?
Yeah, typically I've seen 5 types of financing come in on offers. And like you said, the most common is going to be conventional, which is anywhere from 5 to 20% down loan from a well-qualified buyer. Normally it's not their first home, right? Then if you're working in a first-time home buyer area, you'll get a lot of FHA loans, which are government-backed loans that are typically 5 to 0% down loans that will require you as a seller to pay for one of 2 mandated appraisals. And so sometimes those people are not as well qualified. They're buying their first home. They need help with seller closing costs. So if you're selling a home in a first-time home buyer area, you'll more than likely need to budget, you know, $5,000 to $6,000 in closing costs help when you're buying the deal on the deal analyzer. Then after that, we do see a good amount of VA loans, which are loans that are also government-backed for veterans and their families if they've served. And those are also usually well-qualified buyers. The loans are great, normally always close. We've had a good experience. Then if you're working in more rural areas, we get a lot of USDA loans, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, meant for more rural areas to become developed. So they're giving out these 100% finance loans that are almost always closing. They are a little slow, 45, 60 days sometimes, but they almost always get to the finish line. And finally, we do get a lot of cash offers. You know, we wish all offers were cash offers, but normally these folks still want you to inspect, so still go through the inspection process. They normally won't do an appraisal. They normally just want the house. They don't care. It's the easiest closing timeline, and this is normally a closing that can happen as fast as 14 days. So those are the 5 types of financing you should expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's not going to be much more than that. That you're going to see those types of offers. You're going to see those types of loans. And then you pick one, and then you move on to the closing of a deal. Now the buyer's going to they're going to do their inspections, of course, to make sure everything's good. Lots of times what comes up is a request for repairs, which is when the buyer requests for repairs, and they have an inspector come, and sometimes you get an inspector that's very nitpicky, and you have to maybe give the seller some credits, maybe fix some things. Sometimes you get inspectors that aren't too picky.
And typically we like to offer a couple different steps to get through that process. First and foremost is always just offering a credit. Just they take a little bit of money. If they want to spend it to fix those things or go on a family vacation, cool, but that's less work and headache for you. Right. Then if they have a contractor, maybe the buyer's agents often have maintenance contractors. They might give you a pretty decent quote. If you think that's a good price and your own contractors are not going to be much more, maybe still give them the credit, let their guys do it after closing, and then be done with it. And finally, you can do the work yourself, hire someone, fix it up, hopefully they're happy, and then get the deal closed. So those are really the 3 steps in that order that I would recommend that a potential seller selling a fix and flip home would go.
Perfect. And now just to wrap up selling it, we pass the inspections, we fix what we need to fix. It's closing day, depending on the state. You're using escrow, title, or attorney. It's our favorite day.
Absolutely.
It's when the check comes or the wire comes.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add about closing day?
Look, you know, a lot of times we recommend when you buy a house to fix and flip, you put it in an LLC for your protection. Make sure you have a bank account for that LLC so you can actually deposit the money. Because even though you might be the only owner of that LLC, the check or the wire has to be made out to that name. And a bank will require you to have an account to cash that check. You normally won't be able to take it anywhere and cash it. You'll have to have some sort of account. Right, so you need to make sure you have a bank account to put that money somewhere, and also make sure your bills stop by canceling insurance and utilities the day of closing.
Perfect. Yeah, you don't want to be stuck without a bank account and not be able to get your money. So
Yeah,
that's
and
a
look,
great point.
I've definitely made the mistake of thinking a buyer is going to automatically transfer utilities to their name to get a water bill a month later and be like, how come you didn't do it? Well, it's really on you as the seller to make sure you cancel your services the day after closing, which is a kind of ethical thing to do. Now, in case it's a weekend, they have kids, they're moving in, it's a lot for someone.
Yeah.
So if you're closing on a Friday, schedule the services to be disconnected on the Monday, because the utility companies are typically closed on the weekend, so there's nothing these buyers can do. But you do want to make sure you do cancel them or set them to be canceled. I've definitely had multiple times where the buyers did not do their job, no one told them to, and I ended up paying an extra month to utilities.
So obviously you can see Stan has a lot of experience. You want to remember all these little things so you're not stuck paying extra fees. Because once you close the deal and you get your check, whether it's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, you want to move on to the next one.
Yep.
You know, you want to move on. You want to keep multiplying your money as much as possible. And as you can see, there's a lot of little things here when it comes to flipping a house. And we want to be as thorough as possible on this. We want to make one of the best YouTube videos possible on this topic of flipping a house. And so we did cover those steps. Let's run through them again. Fund it, right? Fund it. We want that financing. It's what we, it's how we're going to be able to buy the deal. We want to do it first. You know, we always here at Real Estate Skills, we always want to begin with the end in mind, right? We don't ever want to be caught blindsided on anything that's to come. And I've just seen so many people get excited about finding the deal, right? They've watched the TV show Flip This House. I've got the deal. And then they can't buy it because they can't bring the money. So we got fund it. We got 2, find it. We talked about the MLS offer system. We talked about wholesalers. We got 3, analyze it. We talked about the big 3, the ARV, the purchase price, the repairs. What else we got? We got buy it. Buy it's easy now at this point, right? Because we have the financing lined up because we work smarter, not harder.
That's right.
And then you did a phenomenal job covering the fix it section. You know, the most important thing after you bought the property, the actual renovation, keeping it on time, making sure everything's done in the right order.
And like you said, when you buy the house is when you make money. When you project manage it, that's when you keep or lose money. And then when you sell it, that's when you collect the money.
And so the great thing about this, what we're sharing with you, is that this is material that has changed our lives. I've seen you grow throughout the years. You've seen me grow throughout the years. A lot of us have followed the steps of wholesaling, then wholesaling, fixing and flipping, and then rolling our profits and buying and holding real estate. And that's what we'd love to teach others to do. It's a proven path. And so if you are interested in learning more about that, just go to realestateskills.com/training and we'll cover how to wholesale, how to fix and flip, how to roll those profits into buy and hold deals so that you can build long-lasting wealth. That's what we're interested in, having more time with our families and not really having to worry about working an hourly job, but doing things that, you know, we can work in real estate, get experience, leverage that experience, learn what a good deal is, bad deal is, and then roll those profits back into real estate. And you know, one thing we always talked about is like this compounding learning and tilting the scales and stacking rocks in our favor. And for me, I know being active in real estate, making active income, and then rolling that money back into real estate, getting a passive income, has just provided so many benefits because I'm not I'm not working like a software job and then trying to learn real estate and like I'm all discombobulated. It just allows me to really stack these rocks. And I've seen your evolution of that to where not only are you wholesaling, fixing and flipping, but you're also buying multifamily projects. We're partnering on multifamily projects. And we're not just talking about 10-unit apartments, we're talking about 100, 200-unit apartment buildings. Awesome. Well, that was a ton of value, Mr. Ganlin. I appreciate you coming here and sharing that with the whole entire audience. I know everyone's gonna get a ton of value from it. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Please leave a comment if you have any questions. We'll be sure to respond. And Stan, anything else?
Look, I mean, that was a lot of content for the fix and flip process. There's obviously a lot more. Those were the general ideas and some of the best golden nuggets that I have when it comes to fix and flipping. So hopefully people learned a lot.
Awesome, man. I know they will. Thank you, Stan. All right, now that you understand the 7 steps to getting started flipping houses, the next step is understanding the full detailed process experienced investors follow when fixing and flipping houses. So in this next section, I'm gonna break down House Flipping 101, which is the full system professional investors use to find these deals, analyze properties, renovate them, and then sell them for a profit. Now, in this section, I'm gonna dive even deeper into each step with the whiteboard so I can break down everything, making it as simple as possible so that you can implement this in the next 90 days. Let's get into it. Step number 1 to fixing and flipping houses successfully is going to be pick your market. And the reason why I made this step number 1 is that so many people do not get started, do not know where they should start flipping houses. So I want to make this step number 1 because it really is simple. And I'm going to want you to make a decision in the next 5 minutes on where you're going to start flipping houses, the market you're going to choose. So there's 2 markets you can choose. Number 1 is going to be locally. This means where you're located, in your own city, in your own county. That's what I recommend for anyone because it's going to be 10 times easier in my opinion. When you have to meet a contractor at a property or meet an agent at a property, you can just drive there and be at the property in 30 minutes, as opposed to if you started 5 states over, you're in California and your property is in Texas that you want to flip, you're going to have to hop on a flight in order to have that meeting in person. Now, a very important thing when flipping houses is that you get a feel for the deal, a feel for the area. You actually drive the area and you make sure that the house isn't right up next to the train tracks. You make sure that the house isn't in a flight path and every 15 minutes there's a super loud plane going over because all of those things will affect the resale value of the property. And that's very hard to determine and very hard to find out if you're not located in the actual area. There's 100 reasons on why I recommend to start locally. 12 years ago, I started in San Diego because I thought it'd be a lot easier to start in my own backyard, and that proved to be correct. It worked out for me. So I recommend starting locally. Now, what's the other market you could start in, right? It could be virtually, and this could be anywhere in the US. And what I found to be the case is a lot of people romanticize the idea of virtually flipping because they do think that it's always going to be better somewhere else than their own backyard. And people have this idea that, oh, my market is competitive, therefore I shouldn't try and flip houses in that market. But I'm here to tell you, if there's competition in your market, that's a good thing. It means people are open and willing to buy property in that area. So don't look at competition as a bad thing whatsoever. Look at that as a sign that it's a great area to flip houses. So when you're local, you can go to the property. There's tons of advantages there from being geographically located where your fix and flip project is going to be. When you're virtual, what are some issues you can run into? Once again, if there's an issue going on with the contractors, are they showing up or not when you're fixing and flipping the property? You can't just go there and check on the property. You actually have to have boots on the ground. Someone there that you're probably paying hourly to show up to the property to check on it. I'm not here to say that this can't be done. It absolutely can be done. And how my partners and I have been able to virtually fix and flip property. Now, we didn't start there, but how you do it, how we've done it, is that it's been an equity type of deal. You do have someone in charge of the deal who's virtually located in that state you're flipping, and they have a piece of the equity, a piece of the property once we fix and flip it. So therefore, they're incentivized to get this deal done. They're incentivized to check on the property. That's how we've been able to do this virtually. But guess what? If you're just starting out, to structure an equity type deal like that and to not be completely in charge of the deal, it's a little more sophisticated than just starting locally and not having to strike an equity deal agreement with someone virtually. So if you want to have the highest likelihood of success, and it's why I'm teaching you this way, so you do have the highest likelihood of success, I recommend starting locally. So right now, make a decision. Are you starting locally or virtually? Step number 2 is find your money, which are the lenders that will lend on your deal. And the reason why this is step number 2 is so many people get excited about going and finding a deal and putting it under contract that they want to fix and flip. But when it comes to purchasing the property and bringing the money for the renovation, if they don't have the money, if they don't have the lenders, then they can't actually do the deal. And what happens in that scenario? They then have to cancel the contract and potentially leave $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 on the table because they couldn't actually buy and perform. So the first thing I want you to understand is that money is absolutely abundant out there. And number 2, you don't need to have all the capital in your bank in order to buy a fix and flip deal. It's what a lot of people don't understand. They think that the fix and flippers out there doing 10 deals a month, buying a $500,000 property, have $5 million of liquid liquid cash in their own personal bank account that they're using to buy these deals. But they're not. They're actually leveraging lenders. And specifically, they're lending two types of lender. The first lender is called a hard money lender. Now, a hard money lender is in the business of lending capital. This is what they do on a daily basis. What's a business want to do? They want to turn a profit. So they're not lending money to you out of the kindness of their hearts. They're lending money to you because they're going to get an annual interest rate on that money, and they're also going to charge something called an origination fee. So when you want to borrow money from them, you have to pay them a fee, and then when you fix and flip the property on a monthly basis, you have to pay them an interest rate for borrowing that capital. But the great thing is, hard money lenders will lend to you if you have a good deal. They lend on the basis of the actual deal itself. You find a bad deal, they're not going to lend on it because it's too risky. If you find a great deal, they will absolutely lend on it. So why will also hard money lenders lend on your deals? Well, they don't lend 100% of the money on the deal. They want to mitigate their risks. So typically, they'll lend anywhere from 70 to 90% of the loan to cost on the deal. And what is the loan to cost? The loan to cost is the cost of the purchase price of the property and also the repairs cost of the property. So I'll use an example. If the purchase price of a property is $400,000 and the repairs are $40,000, they're not going to lend everything that you need to buy this property, right? 400 plus 40 is 440K. They're not lending all of that. They're going to lend, in this scenario, let's say 90%, which is actually 396K. So what that means is you need to bring the additional capital to the table. So if the hard money lender will lend 90% of the loan to cost, how do you come up with the rest of it? Now, once again, you don't have to use your own money. The second type of lender you need to understand and become familiar with is called a private money lender, okay? So where hard money lenders are in the business of lending capital, right? It's a corporation that this is what they do on a daily basis. They're trying to find fix and flippers who need money for these deals. They're actively on social media. They're on Google. They're running paid advertising. They're trying to find fix and flippers. Whereas a private money lender is typically a high net worth individual or a friend or a family member or a colleague, someone you know that has capital in their bank, maybe $100,000, $200,000 that they're willing to lend to you for a deal. Once again, private money lenders aren't lending out of the kindness of their heart. What they want is a return on their money. And a lot of people may not know that they can actually be a private money lender. Now, what's important to realize about private money lenders is they're not out there marketing themselves. They're not out there running ads to find fix and flippers to find you. These are friends, these are family members that you actively go out and see. You're not asking for money. This is a big shift that I realized at a young age. You're actually presenting an opportunity to them to beat the stock market or to beat the interest that they're getting in their savings account. A normal interest rate that we're familiar with borrowing capital from private money lenders and hard money lenders is 10%. 10% annual interest rate. So in this scenario, if we borrowed $80,000 from a private money lender at 10% for a year, what's that? That's going to be $8K. If we borrow that money for a year that we need to pay in interest, just so you get familiar with the interest rates. If this was a 6-month project, I'm not borrowing the money for a year. So what we want to do is divide this by 2, right? Because this was for 12 months. And so then I'd have to pay 4K in interest. So how we're able to get the money for our fix and flip deals is from these sources right here. Hard money lenders and private money lenders. This is what I started using 12 years ago, and this is what we still use today. There's a good term in real estate called OPM. All this is other people's money. And what using lenders allows you to do is to keep your actual cash that you have for your business, for yourself in the bank, so you can leverage that for a rainy day. So you can also leverage your capital to reinvest back into your business, which a lot of the times, when you reinvest your money back into your business, you might get a 4-to-1 return, 400% return on that capital you use for your own business, as opposed to using your own capital for a 10% return. So what we call this is leverage. We're leveraging other people's money in order to do deals. If you're scared of debt, we need to make a very important distinction here. There's something called good debt and something called bad debt. Bad debt is when you go out and buy a $30,000 motorcycle on credit cards that you then have to pay a 20% interest rate on a monthly basis, and it's a liability that only takes money out of your pocket every single month and doesn't turn a profit for you whatsoever. Now, what good debt is when we're leveraging money from lenders like this to turn a profit. when we're borrowing money to make more money. And what we also like to do is buy and hold properties as real estate investors. We don't only fix and flip property. What we like to do is take the active income we make from fixing and flipping houses and then roll those profits into buy and hold deals. And lots of the times we're leveraging loans. We're leveraging lenders to get a lower interest rate and using that debt to then buy the property and then have renters in the property that pays us every single month more than the debt service that we have to pay every single month. So does that make sense? We're using debt to make money, to make cash flow. And this scenario, we're doing it to fix and flip houses. I want you to get familiar with good debt versus bad debt. Credit cards buying a motorcycle, 20% interest rate, no money coming in, bad debt. Leveraging hard money lenders and private money lenders to potentially make a profit of $30, $40, $50,000 on a fix and flip, great debt. Now with hard money lenders, how do we find them? One of my favorite ways is to actually attend Real Estate Investor Association meetings. And what these are meetings typically on a monthly basis, local to your area, where everyone who wants to invest in real estate go. There are brokers here, real estate brokers, real estate agents, there's hard money lenders, there's private money lenders, there's title companies, there's people that will help you with your 401k, IRAs. Point is, there's a lot of people interested in real estate. And this is where you can find hard money lenders. And it's how I met some of my first hard money lenders. So I know it absolutely works. Now, the second place you can find hard money lenders, which is very simple, and you can do this in about 3 minutes of time, is go to Google, type in hard money lenders, then your city name. And you can start finding local and national hard money lenders that you can then call and ask about their lending terms. What types of terms do they lend on? Typically, hard money lenders will lend at that annual interest rate like I talked about, and then on something called points. This is the origination fee I already told you about. But if they charge a 1% origination fee, 1 percentage point, and you borrow $100,000, and that's $1,000 that you need to pay in order to initially get this loan. And I'll dive more into the numbers when we start analyzing the deal, but you want to reach out and talk to these hard money lenders. Find the one that you can work best with. Find the one that's willing to work with you. Now, a couple of hard money lenders that we're familiar with already are Kiavi and Lima One. If you want to check them out, we'll put a link in our description. Those are just companies that my partners and we've been able to use in the past. And then how do we find private money lenders? Remember, these aren't people that are marketing themselves. These could be friends that you went to college with that have a great job, that are great at saving capital, and that you present an opportunity to, and they lend $50,000 or $100,000 on your deal that you pay them interest for. This could be a real estate agent that you've already done deals with. This can be a mentor. This can be a family friend. This can be an aunt, an uncle, right? This can be someone in your network, one person away. So you actually find them by talking to them. You might know these people already that are in your network, and these are the types of people that you need to find. And just so you know, I'm not a trust fund baby. My parents have never lent a cent or a dollar in any of my deals. How I was able to get private money lender funds for my deals initially was by attending RIAs and networking, the Real Estate Investor Association meeting. So I don't want you to think that I was handed anything or, just given money for these deals. I had to go out there and network. And the word work is in network because you have to go out there, present yourself well, and present these opportunities for someone to lend with you. You have to start to develop a good reputation. You have to be educated. You have to learn about deals. You have to know what you're doing and have the right network in order for someone who wants to lend on your deals. So you absolutely can find these people. And I recommend going to Real Estate Investor Association meetings because that's where you're going to create your most luck. Lastly, it's very important that we do this step as step number 2 because what we're able to acquire from these lenders is a POF. What does that mean? It's a proof of funds. It's a PDF or bank statement or letter that shows you have access to the funds in order to purchase a property. So for example, if I wanted to buy a property that was $500,000 and I talked with the hard money lender saying, hey, I need a proof of funds in order to submit these offers so that agents and sellers take me seriously. Most of the times they're going to say, okay, not a problem. And they'll write up a letter that says, Mr. So-and-so has access to $1 million of liquid fund. What that allows you to do is to be taken seriously when you're submitting offers to buy a property from a real estate agent or a seller. So they know you actually have the capital to buy the property. This is very important because what a lot of amateurs do is they do not acquire a proof of funds. And when you're an actual professional at this and you're submitting an offer with a proof of funds, whose offer do you think is going to have the highest likelihood of being accepted? The person who doesn't have a proof of funds, who isn't showing that they have access to the capital, or the person that shows a proof of funds and shows they have access to the capital. You're right, the person that has access to the capital. So we want to acquire a proof of funds. Now, why would a hard money lender give that to you? Well, there's something called reciprocation. If they give you a proof of funds so you can go get a deal under contract, you probably want to reciprocate by using them as your lender, right? So that's why they give out proof of funds. So it's very important that we acquire this proof of funds from a hard money lender or a private money lender, which can be a bank statement, but usually hard money lenders are much more willing to give you a proof of funds. Now, step number 3 to flipping houses successfully is going to be find 3 contractors. And it's important to find these contractors because these are the people that are going to be renovating your property. They're in charge of renovating the property. And let me make a quick distinction. We want to find a general contractor, which we call a GC, because a general contractor will then hire out the subcontractors that do the work on the property, right? The GC, I like to look at them as my project manager. They're managing the fix and flip. It's very important that you want to be a real estate investor. If you want to go paint houses or pick weeds and do landscaping, then go do that and get paid $15 an hour. If you want to make a higher potential income, if you want to learn how to make a higher profit potential, then learn how to be the real estate investor that's able to fix and flip multiple houses at a time. And how you're able to do that is by hiring a very good general contractor. Now, this step, similar to the last step of finding your lenders, I don't want you to go find a house yet without finding your contractors. Because let's say, hey, I know how to get the money, I found a deal, and you buy that deal and you don't have a general contractor yet. Well, each day that you hold onto the deal after you buy it, you are then paying money and interest. So we want to get all of our ducks in a row before we actually find the house, buy it, before we actually start the renovation. Because you can't start the renovation without finding a GC. So let me share a few of my favorite ways on how to find general contractors. Number 1, referrals. Referrals are important because I want to make sure that I have a general contractor that can do work on time and do work on budget. And I want a general contractor who's familiar working with real estate investors. I don't want a general contractor who only works with Jack and Sally, the person who wants to renovate their home once every 20 years. Because what will happen, that type of general contractor will charge retail pricing. I want real estate investor pricing. So I want a general contractor who's familiar working with fix and flippers. My favorite way is to get referrals from other fix and flippers. Now, if you don't know any fix and flippers, how do you find them? You go to RIAs. Not only can you find fix and flippers at RIAs that you could potentially get referrals from for general contractors, there's actual general contractors that will show up to RIAs that want more business too. So it's twofold. You can find fix and flippers, you can get referrals from RIAs, you can actually find the general contractors at the RIAs as well. Now, another way to find general contractors, not as efficient, but literally just driving around and looking for properties being renovated. Now, this may be different depending on your area, but sometimes I drive around San Diego and I see that a property is under construction. I see a banner outside that says the general construction company. I see that there's a lot of subcontractors at the property doing work. And what I do in that scenario, if I see a house being renovated, then I'll just go walk in, talk to the subcontractors. I'll see if the GC is there and introduce myself because I know that they're doing work in an area that I want to renovate houses in. Or if there's that banner outside or a truck outside the house being renovated, it may have the phone number on it. So what do? I take that phone number down or I take a photo and then I call the company and see if this GC is willing to work with me. Now at this point, I'm trying to find 3 general contractors that are used to working with fix and flippers. We're only going to use 1 general contractor for a deal. The reason why I want you to find 3 is because if one gets busy or has too many projects, then you still have 2 other ones. Also, the other reason why I want you to find 3 is so that you can get contractor quotes from all 3 of them and see whose quote is the best, meaning the pricing for the renovation costs. I do not want you to overpay for the renovation costs on a deal. Just getting 1 contractor quote can lose you $10,000 because someone is overcharging you than another general contractor that's willing to do it at a better price. So this alone can potentially save you 5 figures on a fix and flip deal, which is very important. Lastly, one other way you can find general contractors is going to Home Depot or Lowe's. Places where contractors go to, subcontractors, GCs, to pick up materials, to pick up vanities, to pick up the items they need to renovate the house. So a lot of the times you go to Home Depot in the morning, you'll find tons of trucks out there with phone numbers on the side that you can take photos of and call those companies in order to find these GCs and see if they'd be willing to work with you. Now, step number 4 to finding and flipping houses successfully is going to be to find an investor-friendly agent. And it's really important that we want to find an investor-friendly real estate agent because not all real estate agents are created equal and not all real estate agents want to work with investors. For example, there are real estate agents that just want to list $3 million houses that don't need any renovation on them whatsoever and just want to represent clients like Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez, right? Those types of clients, sometimes you see them on those TV shows. What we're looking for are actual investor-friendly agents that want to work with us and submit a lot of offers, because what I'm going to teach you is how to buy houses to fix and flip that are on the market. And the reason why we like to work with real estate agents, because the National Association of Realtors, over the last 5 years, it's always had a range of 86 to 91% of all real estate transactions happen on the market, on the MLS, or with a real estate agent. So we want to use a real estate agent to submit offers. That's how you're able to submit offers at the purchase price that you want to buy the deal at when houses are on the market. We're dealing with agents here. So how do we find an investor-friendly agent, right? Because we need to submit these offers. This agent is going to represent you when you want to submit an offer, and they're going to earn a commission if you buy the property. Now, as of today, the seller will pay the commission for the buyer's agent that we need to find to submit offers. The other reason why we want to find an investor-friendly real estate agent is that once we get to the point of fixing the house and then getting the house ready to put back on the market, well, we need another real estate agent or the same real estate agent we're using here to then sell the property on the market once again so we can get the most eyeballs possible. So I want you to look at this in 2 ways, right? This agent is going to help us on the front end. What's that mean? Submitting offers. This is how we get deal, right? Submitting offers equals deals. Generally, you'll see the more offers you submit, the more deals you're going to get. Now on the back end, this is when we resell the property. Back end, and we call this listing a house. All right? And you need to be familiar with this so you don't get to the end of your project and you're like, how the heck do I sell it? Now, just so you know, typically a buyer's agent gets paid 2.5% and 2.5% to sell the property. That's of the purchase price on the front end that I'll teach you about. And this is on the back end, the ARV. When we resell the property, the agent's going to get 2.5%. As of today, the seller pays these commissions. So this is something that when you buy the property, you won't need to come out of pocket. When you actually sell the property, once it's fixed up and renovated, you'll then come out of pocket. Now, how do we find an investor-friendly agent? Well, once again, my favorite place, RIAs. It's where you're going to find the hungry real estate agents that want to work with real estate investors. And what are you if you're a fix and flipper? Well, I consider you a real estate investor. So I want you to go to Real Estate Investing Association meetings in your area. And as a reminder, how you find these meetings, just type in Real Estate Investor Association meeting on Google and then type in your city name. So Real Estate Investor Association, San Diego, for example, whatever city you're in. Now, another way to find investor-friendly agents as we get deeper into these steps is on the MLS or on the market, meaning the houses that we actually call that are going to be in a distressed condition. These are investment type properties. If an agent is selling that type of property, we typically can generalize that they're going to be an investor-friendly agent. And that's a great way. I'm going to show you how to find these agents very, very quickly so that they can work with you. All you need to do is ask them, hey, I am an investor. I'm open and willing to submitting multiple offers every single month. Are you open and willing to work with me to be able to submit offers on these types of deals, just like the one you're listing today? And there's going to be some agents that aren't going to be willing to work with you, and there's going to be some that absolutely want to. So this is a way on how we find these real estate agents, RIAs, and actually on the market on the MLS. Now, lastly, what I'm going to teach you as we go deeper into the steps, I'm going to teach you how you can save 4 to 5 figures when selling a property. Most real estate investors will pay real estate agents anywhere from 5 to 6% of the resale value of their property in totality. And what I'm going to teach you is instead of charging 5 to 6%, I'm going to teach you how to charge 4%. So saving at least 1% to 2% of the resale value of the property. If we're talking about a $500,000 property, that's going to save you $5,000 to $10,000. So I taught you how to potentially save $10,000 by finding 3 contractors. And then what I'll show you later on is how to potentially save 4 to 5 figures when selling the property by paying a little bit less in commissions. So stay tuned. Now for step number 5 on how to flip houses, I'm going to cover how to find actual houses that you can flip. Now, the most important thing to understand is as an investor, one of the most important skills that you need to develop is the ability to find these houses, submit offers on these houses, and put them under contract. It's one of the most important things as an investor, because once you can get a deal under contract, you can then choose your exit strategy. And what I'm covering today is the exit strategy of fixing and flipping the house, but you can also wholesale that house. You could partner with someone who does all of the work. You could potentially buy and hold that property and rent it out for cash flow. So it's important to realize those that have the deals under contract, they have the power. At the end of the day, if you can always find houses to flip and put them under contract, you will always have a business because you will always have something of monetary value, that contract, and you can always dictate that exit strategy. Now, when we're finding houses to flip, we need to find houses that are in a distressed condition, and that will typically lead to finding sellers in a distressed situation. And let me define both of these. A distressed condition is a house that maybe has holes in the roof, overgrown shrubbery. Maybe a house that has been never updated, meaning it's stuck in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It has old, faulty electrical wiring. Maybe the foundation is tilted. You put a marble on the floor, it goes from one end to the other, right? There's fixing that needs to go into this property. And what's great about a property in a distressed condition is that a normal home buyer can't buy this property. It needs to be purchased for all cash. And that's because a bank, which a normal home buyer leverages to buy a property and get a loan from, that bank won't lend on this property because it's too risky. Us as fix and flippers, we're willing to take on this risk because we can turn this into a profit. So we look for properties in a distressed condition. These are going to be the best deals for us as fix and flippers. Now, we're also looking for sellers in a distressed situation. Now, a distressed condition's pretty easy to spot. When I show you how to find these deals, we can just look at the photos of the property and we can see with our eyes that it's in a distressed condition. Also, the description of the property that a real estate agent types in, they may say that this property needs a lot of work. They may admit that this is a fixer-upper. So we know that. Now, from calling and talking to the real estate agent, that's typically how we discover if the seller's in a distressed situation. The real estate agent's typically not going to say, hey, this seller is going through a divorce in the description, right? That wouldn't be too nice to share that personal information in the public domain. But if you call the real estate agent and you ask, what's the seller's reason for selling? Then they may tell you. Other distressed situations can be that the seller needs to sell quickly because they just lost their job and they have to move to a new state for a new job, for more affordable housing. There could be litigation going on, a lawsuit for one reason or another, and they have to sell this property in order to fund this lawsuit. There's 100 reasons why a seller can be in a distressed situation, and that's just a few of them. Now, how we find these deals, we love leveraging something called the MLS. The MLS stands for the Multiple Listing Service. This is a database created and maintained by real estate professionals, and it shows all of the listings on the market for sale by a real estate agent in this database. Now, there's not just one MLS. There's over 600 across the United States. But typically, in your particular area, there's one MLS, maybe two, maybe three, that show the properties in your county and surrounding counties. So we love leveraging the MLS. This is what we've been doing for 12 years as our main acquisition source. You can get access to this by partnering up with a real estate agent and also something called assistant access. In some states, you can get assistant access to the MLS and don't need to be licensed in order to get access. Now, what I'm going to show you today are a few websites you can use to find on-market properties. The best way to find these properties is using the MLS, but the next best way, if you don't have access to the MLS, is going to be redfin.com, Zillow, or realtor.com. So when flipping houses to find these deals, we're either going to use MLS or any of these websites. And I'm going to share with you two strategies that I absolutely love to find these deals that we always use. Number one, it's called the day zero strategy. And what you want to do here, let's just say you're using redfin.com. I want you to go find all of the new listings in your particular area that are on the market in the last 24 areas. You can actually use the filtration mechanisms on here to find that. You can do the same thing on the MLS, but I'll use Redfin in this example. And if Redfin isn't in your market, then use Zillow or Realtor. Now, what we want to do, if there's 50 new properties that are listed today, I want you to go through those properties and check mark the ones that look like they're in a distressed condition. And you find that out by looking at the photos of the property. Do we see the overgrown shrubbery? Do we see the cabinetry that's all messed up? Do we see the floor that is ripped up? Do we see the mold on the wall, right? So out of those 50 properties that are listed, I want you to understand there might only be 5 or 10 that are actually distressed that we're going to want to call on. We've been able to get deals under contract the same day because we were one of the first ones to call on the property. So speed is the name of the game here. When we find a new property that's distressed, that's on the market, we then want to call that property as soon as possible. We want to be the first person to call on this property, the first investor. Because many times you can call this real estate agent, you can talk about the property, they can tell you if you're willing to come in at $150,000, you can lock this up today. So those conversations do happen from time to time, and this is why we love the day zero strategy. Now keep in mind, I'm not telling you to call on the beautiful renovated properties that don't need any fixing up, right? Because I know if I don't say that, people are going to call on a property that already has the quartz countertops, already has the Viking appliances, that doesn't need any fixing up. We're not looking at the 40 out of 50 that are already renovated that are going to go to a normal home buyer. We're looking for the 10 properties that are distressed with the day zero strategy. So that's our number one strategy. Number two, what I want to cover is the old listings strategy. And these are properties that can be 60, 90, even 120 plus days old. The reason why I love this strategy is because if a property hasn't sold in this amount of time frame, that means that the property was either listed too high of a price and now the seller is willing to sell it at a lower price, or there was a problem going on with the property, maybe litigation, maybe a pending lawsuit, and now time can kill all deals or time can save all deals. If enough time has gone on, maybe that problem's been solved, or if you talk to the real estate agent and there's some sort of problem going on, you could be that solutions provider on a particular property, right? Maybe this homeowner needs help moving out of their property. And maybe this homeowner needs a buyer that's willing to lease back, rent back the property to them for 90 days so they could use that time to pack up everything that they need and find a new property to move into. So if there's a particular problem going on, which is typically the case of old listings are 60, 90, 120 days old, and this is a distressed property and the seller's in a distressed situation, then it's another great way to be able to find these distressed houses that you can then fix and flip. Now, a third way to be able to find these properties that you can flip is leveraging something called wholesalers. Wholesalers are professionals that put deals under contract, put houses under contract. They don't buy the property, but they then sell the contract rights to fix and flippers. And what wholesalers are looking for are a wholesale fee. So typically $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000 in compensation for putting the property under contract and selling that contract to you. Now, a couple ways on how to find these wholesalers. Once again, I mentioned RIAs already, Real Estate Investor Association meetings. A lot of wholesalers will go there to find people like you, fix and flippers that they want to sell deals to. Another great way to find wholesalers is to join potential programs that teach wholesaling. For example, we have a program called Pro Wholesaler where we teach people how to wholesale houses across the United States. If you're a fix and flipper and you join that program, you now have access to hundreds of wholesalers across the United States that you could tell them your buy box, your buying criteria on what types of deals you're looking for, and then have deals sent to you. So wholesalers are a great way, in addition to the day zero strategy and old listing strategy, to be able to find deals that you want to fix and flip. Now we're at step number 6, which is make discovery calls to listing agents. So let's say you're using both the combination of the day zero strategy and the old listing strategy, and we've discovered and found these distressed properties. We now need to call that listing agent who's in charge of the deal. Now the great thing about the MLS, the contact information for the agent's going to be there. The email for that agent is going to be there. The email and phone number for the brokerage office is going to be there. So all the contact information you need is always on the MLS. If we're using something like Redfin, Zillow, or Realtor, sometimes the contact information, meaning the phone number, is on there. If not, usually the listing agent's name is on there. And then you just Google that listing agent's name and find their contact information online. Typically, listing agents' contact information is easy to find because they want to be contacted. Now, the most important thing to understand about these calls, these are not cold calls. All right, I am not cold calling someone who does not want to be contacted. I consider these calls warm and hot phone calls. Now, why is that? Why are these warm and hot phone calls? Because listing agents only make money when they sell a property. When you submit an offer to them and they close on the property, that's when they make money. So guess what? They want to pick up random phone calls. They want investors to call them if this is an investment property. They want offers on their properties. Whereas cold calls, you're cold calling someone who doesn't want to be contacted. So I love making warm and hot phone calls. I hate making cold calls. I don't do them. So you need to understand these are warm and hot phone calls and get excited about that. And this discovery call we make for the real estate agent. Let's say you're using the day zero strategy and it's 8 a.m. in the morning and you filtered the 50 properties. You now have a list of 10 and you're going to start calling on the hottest property that you have. We want to call the real estate agent to accomplish a few things. We want to ask questions like, is the property actually still active? So sometimes we'll see an active property, but guess what? Someone beat us to the punch and now it's pending or contingent, meaning someone else put it under contract. So we can't put a property under contract if it's already under contract. So is it still active? Number 2, do the online photos of the property match the actual condition? Are those photos outdated or are they up to date? And then what is the actual current condition of the property? I love asking the real estate agent this because guess what? If the property property is distressed and then they're describing the distressed situation the property is in, they're now admitting that this is a distressed property. So when I go send my cash offer to them, the purchase price that I want, it makes sense. It's an investor offer because the property is distressed. Plus the agents in charge of the deal, they know the most about the deal. A lot of the times as an investor, I can understand the amount of repairs are needed from the photos. I can understand the condition, but asking the agent's super important because they may know some additional things about the property that you don't see from the photos. Now here's another very important thing we want to accomplish on this call. Is the agent willing and open to work with us? Meaning, are they open to represent our offer if we're an investor? If we're making an offer on this particular property, are they open to representing us as our buyer's agent? This is very important because a listing agent typically gets paid 2.5%, 3% commission from the seller, and a buyer's agent typically gets paid 2.5%, 3% from the seller as well. When we directly reach out to the listing agent unrepresented at this time, and we ask the listing agent to represent us, what you're effectively saying is, hey, do you want to make twice as much money if you accept my offer? It's pretty incentivizing. So you need to understand that when you ask them to represent you on this deal, they can make twice as much capital. And that's going to increase the likelihood of you being able to close this deal if they're open and willing to work with you. Now, something else we want to accomplish on this call. I love asking, what's the seller's reason for selling? Sometimes a real estate agent will tell you, and sometimes they won't. But if I know that this seller needs to move in 17 days to Colorado because they lost their job and they have to move in 17 days and they need a cash offer because there's no regular offer that's going to close within 17 days, then I know this is not only a property in a distressed condition, but the seller's in a distressed situation as well. So what does that mean? That means we can get the lowest effective price possible when we're making an offer because the seller has motivation to sell. It's what we're looking for, the property in distressed condition and distressed situation. I call that a double whammy, and we see the highest likelihood of success when those two things are happening on a deal. An additional question I like to ask is, what's the competition like on the property? Meaning, what's the activity been like? How many calls and how many offers do you have? I like to assess the competition and understand where we need to come in at to make this property work. I always ask the agent that because the agent may say a price that I know is going to work for me. They may say way too high of a price, or they may say a low price that once again works for me. It's always good to ask these questions. These are the things that most people aren't willing to ask, whereas I am willing to ask these questions. My students at Wholesale and Flip Houses are willing to ask these questions. And when you get this information, when you get this data, it then allows you to make the best offer possible and increases your likelihood of success of closing these deals. So not only finding these deals, but being able to purchase them to fix and flip. So as we're talking with the real estate agent, we're seeing if they're open and willing to work with us. And it's about asking the right questions to get the right information. Now, once we've done that, we've asked those questions, we've discovered about the property, hence the discovery call. At this point in time, we don't need to just send out an offer or say a random purchase price to the agent. At this point in time, we're going to want to analyze the deal. Now we understand that yes, this is an active property that's on the market. Yes, it is distressed. Yes, the seller's in a distressed situation. And yes, this agent wants to work with us. So after the initial discovery call, I always leave that initial conversation by saying, great, thank you for your time. I'm going to go back, meet with my team, analyze this property, and let you know exactly where we need to offer to make this property work. Does that sound good? Yes? All right, thank you. Talk to you soon. And what that allows me to do is, yes, we realize that this is a property that is worth pursuing now. I'm not going to analyze a property if I don't know that it's active, if I don't know that the agent's going to work with us, because I like to work smarter, not harder. And it's going to waste a lot of our time if we analyze every single property that comes across our plate. So we want to be effective and we want to be efficient, and this allows us to do that. Now, as you can see, we've made a lot of these phone calls to real estate agents over the years. This is something that we've systemized, we have scripts on, and we have our additional strategies on how to find even more deals on the market on the MLS. I shared the day zero strategy. I shared the old listing strategy as well, but we have up to 9 strategies that we use effectively to be able to find, fix, and flip houses. If you're interested in leveraging our systems and tools and also our 12 years of experience, then be sure to check out our program, Pro Fix and Flipper. If you want to check that out and learn more about it, all you need to do is go to realestateskills.com/apply, and you'll be able to speak with one of my expert advisors on my team. And regardless if we decide to work together or not, we'll always leave you in a better place than where you came in. So we'll be sure to link you up with our free resources that we have and point you in the right direction, whichever way you want to go in your real estate journey. And now we're on step number 7, which is further analyze the property. So once again, we've talked to the real estate agent. They're open and willing to work with us. And now we want to analyze the actual property. So what I like to do and what I teach is to find the big three numbers. The big three numbers, number one is going to be the ARV. This is the after repair value. This is the future price of our subject property, the property we're analyzing, the distressed house, and we're going to analyze for the future value of this property, and that will allow us to determine what the purchase price is going to be. And we also determine that by finding out what the repairs costs are. So the second biggest number, the repairs cost, is the cost of renovation in order to achieve the after repair value. And once we dictate these numbers and once we plug it into our MAO formula that we have over here on the board, we'll then be able to determine our purchase price. So first off, how do we find the ARV? We find the ARV by finding something called comps. Comps are comparable sold properties that are comparable to our subject property. So let's just say the property that we're analyzing, the one that we called on, is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,100 square feet. All right, so how do we find the after repair value, the ARV? We're going to find something called comps. And comps are comparable sold properties that are close to our subject property. We want to find comps that are the same bed bath count and also similar square footage as our subject property. The subject property, once again, is a property that we're analyzing, the distressed property that we want to offer on. So if our subject property is a 3-bed, 2-bath house and 1,100 square feet, then we want to find comparable sold properties that are also 3-bed, 2-bath and around 1,100 square feet. Now I'm going to give you my comp criteria that we've been using for 12 years to effectively fix and flip property and to analyze for the ARV. So what we need to find, number one, renovated properties, properties that have sold in the last 6 months. We need to find properties that are plus or minus 20% of this square footage. We need to find properties with the same bed bath count and in the same neighborhood and same city if we're able to. Now the criteria I need you to understand that we've been using for 12 years to effectively get the ARV on our fix and flip deals. This criteria that we use is that we need to find renovated sold properties that have sold in the last 6 months that are plus or minus 20% of this square footage. So it can be a little bigger, a little smaller, because sometimes we won't be able to find model matches or compare exactly apples to apples. We want to try and find comps that have the same bed bath count. That's super important, right? I'm not looking for a property that has 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms and that's 2,000 square feet, because that's just too different of properties. It's going to make it too hard to analyze for the ARV. We also need to find properties that are in the same zip code, so the same city. We don't want to be looking at a property that's 5 cities over. It's not going to help us analyze for the ARV. There's different school districts, there are different areas. There can be homeless in this other area, not in this area. So that's very important. And if possible, we want to find comps in the same neighborhood. And lastly, the last criteria that we want is within 0.5 miles radius of the subject property. Now, the great thing about the MLS is they have tools that you can actually circle around your property and select all the criteria I just mentioned and be able to pull up all those sold properties. You can also do that on Redfin, Zillow, and Realtor. Sometimes it's not as user-friendly, but this is essentially what we need to do. Let's say we use this comp criteria and we find 3 comps that have sold in the last 6 months with similar bed bath count and similar square footage. Let's say we found one comparable property at $540,000, another one at $545,000, and another one at $550,000. Well, these are all pretty darn similar. What I'm going to do is average out these, and when I do the average, it's going to come to $545,000. Now, confidently, I'm willing to say that this property will most likely sell at $545,000 because that's what my comparable properties are showing me. So when done effectively, I can now put my ARV at $545,000. And if it's hard for you to remember that comp criteria that I covered, I'll actually put that into a cheat sheet for you. And you can just go to realestateskills.com/comp and be able to download that. And I'll put the link in the description as well. And now let's go into the repairs cost, right? How do we analyze for the repairs cost? Well, one thing we include in all of our programs is something called a repair line item cheat sheet. And this has every single repair needed on a property so that you can get familiar with it. If you want to be a pro fix and flipper, it's important to know every single item in a property and how much it costs. But as you start to develop relationships with contractors, as you start to do more deals, typically you can develop a great rule of thumb, a general square footage rule, a dollar per square footage rule that allows you to quickly analyze repairs on a property. For example, if a property is a cosmetic fixer, meaning I don't need to adjust the foundation, I don't need to jackhammer the foundation and put in rebar and fix the property, and the property is not burnt down, I have to rebuild it, meaning it's all cosmetic. I'm talking about lipstick, like paint, cabinetry, landscaping, new flooring, but not moving walls. All cosmetic. I know from doing enough deals in my particular area area, an all cosmetic fixer, I can get done at $35 a square foot. So if my subject property is 1,100 square feet, I multiply 1,100 times $35, and that comes out to $38,500. So from a quick analysis in about 5 seconds, I determined roughly what the repairs are going to be. Now, I'm a round upper. I'm gonna round this up and say the repairs are gonna be $40,000 if this is going to be a cosmetic fixer. So now we have repairs costs, let's throw that in here, 40K. And it's important to understand this is a rule of thumb. If we get this analysis wrong, which a lot of people do, when they're starting out, they totally underanalyze and underestimate the repairs costs. And typically they overestimate the ARV as well. What happens if you do that is it directly eats into your bottom line, your profit on the deal. And that's how a lot of people get in trouble and get in and out of this business very quickly because they don't understand the numbers. And this is why in our programs, we always love to cross-check our students' numbers. We always love to go over their deal analyzer and make sure their numbers are solid and that they have a good deal on their hands. Now in this scenario, I'm covering this cosmetic fixer, the repairs of $40,000. In another example, let's just say there was a cracked slab. There was a roof replacement that needed to happen. I would still analyze for the cosmetic fixing that needs to happen, but then a la carte, the additional items, the roof, the slab fix, I would then add to this number. So for example, the slab fix was $20,000. I would add that to $40,000 in that scenario, and my total repairs cost would be $60,000. Once again, in this scenario, we're gonna say the repairs are $40,000 because it's a cosmetic fixer. And if you're flipping a house for the first time, I highly recommend you work on a house that's only cosmetic. If you bite off more than you can chew, you can run into a lot of issues. And that's what a lot of people do when they get started. They think that, hey, I wanna do a $200,000 renovation. And the higher the renovation cost, the more walls you have to open, the more things that can go wrong. So I do not recommend that if you're flipping a house for the first time. Always try and go for a cosmetic fixer. Now that we have the ARV at $545, because we looked at the comps, and we have the repairs cost at $40,000, now what we can do is plug it into this MAO formula. MAO stands for maximum allowable offer. Now what we use in our programs are calculators to analyze these numbers down to the T, down to the penny, and also allows us to not have to use this paper napkin math to be able to figure out these numbers because we like to quickly just analyze these properties. But in this scenario, I'll break down all of the costs so that you can find out how we get our purchase price from here. So what I first need to do is put my ARV at the top. We know that that's $545,000. $545,000, we then need to calculate our hard money loan costs. So the amount of time that a project should take is typically 4 to 6 months, depending on the amount of renovation. So I know from experience, if I'm doing this renovation, it's $40,000 in repairs. A good rule of thumb is that the work itself, about $10,000 will take 1 week of work. I'm accounting for about 2 months of work in case there's delays, 2 months on the market in case there's delays, and then 2 months of closing time in case there's delays. So I'm going to say that I'm going to hold on this project for 6 months. And what I like to do is be conservative in my estimates. I don't like to say, hey, I'm going to get this thing done in 62 days. I never want to do that. I always over budget on time. That way, if I get the project done quickly, then I'm making more profit. I have a buffer in there. Now we need to subtract the hard money loan costs. Remember I talked about hard money loans earlier. There's a cost to that money and borrowing that capital. So with the hard money loan cost, what we have to understand is there's an annualized interest rate and also points. So let's just say we borrowed at 10% interest rate annualized, and there's a 1% point, an origination fee. Let's just say this project's gonna be 6 months like we talked about because we're conservative. Well, in this scenario, as an example, just to break this down quickly, we're going to borrow money from a hard money lender at loan to cost. The cost, the purchase price plus the renovation. We know the renovation is $40,000. In this example, let's say the purchase price is $440,000. 90% of $440,000 is going to be $396,000. That's the amount of money the hard money lender is willing to lend us. And they're willing to lend us that capital at a 10% interest rate. Well, 10% of $396,000 is $39,600. That's if I was going to borrow that money for a year. We need to divide that in half because we're borrowing the money for 6 months. So that's going to be $19,800 of interest payments that we need to pay for the hard money loan cost. Now, additionally, there's 1% origination fee on this money. For borrowing $396,000, what's 1% of $396,000? It's $3,960. So we need to add $19,800 plus $3,960 for borrowing money from the hard money lender for 6 months. And this is going to be $23,000 $4,760. We have to account for that cost of borrowing that capital. So that's how we calculate the hard money loan cost. And now we need to calculate the private money lender costs. So what's important to understand is we were able to get $396,000 from a hard money lender. Now the difference between the amount to purchase the property, $400,000 and $40,000, $440,000, $396,000, that's $44,000 of additional money we need to bring to the table. But now we have to account for the hard money lender costs that we need to borrow money for as well. So we have a $44,000 difference that we need to borrow from a private money lender. We have $23,760 that we need to account for in hard money loan costs. You have to account for that. Then we need to account for the front end closing costs on this property. I run this number at 2% of the purchase price to cover the front end closing costs, which is typically around 1%. And we need to cover some additional holding costs, meaning utilities, taxes, insurance, for when we're actually flipping the property. So 2% of the purchase price typically covers it. So at 2% of $400,000 in this situation, that would be $8,000. So this is the additional amount of money we need to borrow from a private money lender, and this is going to be $75,670 we need to borrow from a private money lender. I'm going to round up and say we need to bring $80,000 additional to the table from a private money lender. That's what I need to borrow from a private money lender in order to close this deal, so I don't run out of money when I have to pay my hard money lender on a monthly basis. So I don't run out of money when I have to pay for utilities, taxes. So I don't run out of money when I have to pay front end closing costs when we purchase the property. So in total, just so we're on the same page, we got $396 from a hard money lender and $80K from a private money lender. We're borrowing this at 10% at one point, which we calculated the cost for. We now need to borrow, let's just say we negotiated the terms with the private money lender, because you get to negotiate the terms. That's a really cool thing. You get to bring the terms to the table when working with a private money lender. So in this scenario, let's just say we borrowed the money at 10% interest. That's what they get. If we borrow that money once again for a year, that'd be $8,000. We divide that by 2. If we're borrowing it for 6 months, that's going to be $4,000. So that's the private money lender cost that we have here. Now we're doing well in our MAO formula. We have the ARV, hard money loan costs, private money loan costs. Now, I already calculated this particular number, the front end closing costs and hold costs. This is 2% of this purchase price. In this example, it's going to be $8,000. The back end closing costs, we need to run this at 1% of the ARV. The ARV is 545, which is also right here. 1% is going to be 5,450. Now the realtor fees, most people run this at 5 to 6% of the ARV. What we always love to do is make it 4%. So when we're selling a property, this listing agent, if we can work with the listing agent on the property that we're buying the property with, we could have them relist the property, or if we found that investor-friendly agent, like I taught you in the beginning steps, we can have them list the property for sale for us in the future. We pay a buyer's agent to bring a buyer to the table 2.5%. It's what we have to do as a seller. And then we pay the listing agent, the person representing our property, 1.5%. We've been doing this for years because we feel that we are delivering a property on a silver platter for a listing agent. So where most people pay an extra percentage point, that's an additional $5,450. We do not. We like to pay 1.5% when we have an agent list our property. So the total of 4% of the ARV is going to be $21,800. Those are our realtor fees. Now our aimed profit that we have on the property. If I'm doing a property that's sub $700,000, for what I put in the repairs, I want to at least get out of it. So in this scenario, if I'm putting $40,000 in the repairs, I want at least $40,000 out of this deal. I'm not saying you're going to make that on each and every deal. Sometimes you'll make more, sometimes you'll make less, but that's what we like to shoot for. So let's put $40,000 as our aimed profit. Now what we're going to do is subtract all of these costs from the ARV, and this will tell us exactly where we should have our maximum allowable offer on this property, the price that will work in order to achieve this aimed profit that we have. So let's subtract everything that we have here. We don't need to subtract the ARV. So let's subtract everything we have here from the 545K ARV number, and that will be 401. And so we'll subtract all of these numbers from the ARV that will give us our maximum allowable offer, which will be the purchase price on the deal. And that should be about 401,990. So we know that that's our maximum allowable offer now that we've accounted for all costs associated on the deal. This number, if everything goes right and doesn't go over budget, should give us our aimed profit of $40,000. And now we know where we need to offer at. In this scenario, I want to round down. Let's just say $400,000 is now going to be my purchase price. So good job. We've now broken down exactly where we need to offer out on this property. Because we found the ARV, 545, the repairs cost of $40,000, we're then able to break down what our purchase price should be through the estimates that we have here. So congratulations. Most people get stuck by paralysis by analysis. They start analyzing 100 deals before they make one phone call to a real estate agent. And you've been working smarter, not harder. So you've already called the real estate agent, verified that they want to work with you. We know this is a great deal. And now we analyze the property. We know our offer price. And now we can go back to the real estate agent, which is going to be in the next step. Now we're on step number 8. We've analyzed the deal. We know where we need to offer on the property, $400,000 in this scenario. Now we need to call the agents back and submit written offers. So on one particular deal, our subject property that we're analyzing, we're calling the listing agent back and we're letting them know where we need to offer at on this particular property. And now that we know where we need to offer at, we talk with the real estate agent and we see if $400,000 will work. Sometimes it will work and sometimes it won't. Sometimes you might have to negotiate and have a tighter deal. Sometimes you might have to negotiate on the terms of your deal. But in this scenario, let's just say that particular price works because we found a seller that's in a distressed situation and a property that's in a distressed condition. If the agent's open and willing to work with us, then they are going to write up the contract now at this point in the phase. So a pro tip is you don't want to bring an off-market random contract to a real estate agent. You want to use the actual contract they're familiar with. For example, in California, we use the California Association of Realtors contract, and we need to submit the offer terms to the agent so that they can write up the contract for us. Once again, we want the listing agent to represent us as our buyer's agent and write up this contract. If that doesn't happen, if the agent's not willing to write up our offer for us, this is why I taught you in the beginning steps to find an investor-friendly agent that's open and willing to work with you. Because if the listing agent's not open to working with you, I still want you to get a written offer in. Written offers is what leads to deals. The more written offers you send, the more deals you're going to get. So you can use the actual agent you found earlier to be able to submit offers for you if the listing agent's not willing to work with you. Now in this scenario, let's say the listing agent is willing and able to work with you. These are the offer terms that you need to send the agent via email in order for them to put the offer terms into the contract that they'll send to you that you can sign. So what we need to send the real estate agent is the purchaser name. So if you have an LLC or company, make sure you put that there. If you don't, then you're going to be buying it in your personal name. Put your personal name so that the agent knows that. Then you need to put in the offer price. In this scenario, it's $400,000. Then we need to put in the deposit amount. This is called the earnest money deposit. This is a deposit that's typically due within 3 days of us getting a property under contract. What we've done for years is always have our deposits be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. In our area in California, these are typically refundable. And in order to understand if the EMD is refundable or not, then you read the contract that the agent has given you to make sure it is refundable. I don't want you to lose any money. Our goal is to do this without losing any money. These deposits are refundable, and the way that we get them back is by including in here a 7-day inspection contingency. The inspection contingency is what allows us to inspect the property to make sure that there's nothing out of the ordinary that we didn't see from the photos, that we didn't see from talking with the real estate agent, and allows us to back out during the inspection and get our earnest money deposit back if the deal doesn't work out. Now, additionally, we need to put a 14-day close or sooner. One of the benefits of having a cash offer is that we can actually close in a quick time frame. So whereas a normal homeowner needs 30 days, 45 days to close, we can actually close in 14 days or sooner. So in this scenario, let's say that the seller needed to move quickly in 17 days, so we could close in 14 days. One thing we always love to put on our offer terms as well is seller to deliver free and clear title. What this means is we don't want to buy a property that has liens on it or credit card debt or someone going after the property and putting an additional note or an additional mortgage on the property because that original seller owes them some sort of funds. When we buy the property, we want it free and clear with none of those liens on the property. And we need that in the contract so the expectation is set right from the get-go. And lastly, I put the buyer's agent's name, which in this scenario is going to be the listing agent. That way it's all very clear that this listing agent is going to be representing me on this particular deal. Now the documentation, if you have an LLC or a company, then what you want to provide is the articles of incorporation, which shows that you are a signer for your company or an operating agreement. Because if your company name is ABC Homes LLC, we need the agent to see that you are a designated signer for the company in order to close this deal. If you're purchasing in your personal name, then you do not need an articles of incorporation or operating agreement to show you are the correct signer. And because I taught you how to find the hard money lenders from the beginning, you want to include your proof of funds with those offer terms you submit to the agent. This is so that there are no questions asked and that the agent knows you have access to the funds in order to buy these deals. Be sure to do that, because if you don't, the agent will have to ask for it. And one of my mottos is, the agent has to ask you for anything, then that's not a good thing. And because I taught you how to find hard money lenders in the beginning, you're going to want to submit a proof of funds that shows you have access to the capital when you submit your offer as well to the real estate agent, along with your offer terms. This is so that the agent doesn't need to ask you for this, and it's going to show that you know what you're doing, have access to the capital, and so that the agent has confidence in your offer and your ability to close. Now we're on step number 9. So at this point in time, we've sent the offer terms to the agent. The agent's written up the contract. The agent sends that contract to us. We sign it. Now at that point, we send the contract back to the agent. They meet with the seller. If they agree upon our offer terms and they sign the contract, we now have an offer accepted. And this means our timelines kick in, our due diligence kick in. What this means is the EMD is now due, the earnest money deposit, within 3 days of offer acceptance. The inspection period starts the day we get under contract. We have a 7-day inspection period that allows us to inspect the property to make sure there's nothing out of the ordinary with the property, that everything that we see, that we assume we're getting into, checks out. Meaning that the whole house doesn't need to have ducting added to it. Meaning it doesn't need a whole new HVAC system that we didn't account for in our renovation budget. Now the inspection period is also our backout clause. If you see something you don't like, you can then negotiate during your inspection period and or back out of the deal if you don't want to go ahead and purchase it and fix and flip it. So very important that we operate with our inspection time period. Now the closing date kicks in. If we have a 14-day close time on this deal, then from the day of acceptance, we need to close this deal 14 days later, bring the funds to the table. So I wanted to show you all the timelines that kick in so that you're aware. And during this period, we do our due diligence, we check out the property. So at this point, what we like to leverage, what we've leveraged for a long time, we've developed a repair cheat sheet system. So this allows us to go line item by line item, walk around the exterior of the property, the interior of the property, and understand what types of renovation this property needs. Does it need a new roof, new gutters, exterior paint, garage repair? Does the yard need to be cleaned, right? Every little item we go through and we check mark. This allows us to develop a very detailed scope of work. Now, a scope of work is the list of items we need to renovate this property up to current condition. So I'm talking about the lighting fixtures, the cabinetry, the appliances, the type of flooring. Every single item that we need, we put into our scope of work. What this allows us to have is ultimate clarity on the type of renovation that this project needs. We're then able to provide the scope of work to our 3 contractors. Remember, I told you to find 3 contractors. So we can now get those contractors out to the property during our inspection time period, because that's the time we have to do our inspections to get our contractors out there. And we want to work smarter, not harder. I don't want to buy this property and then get contractor quotes. During the inspection period, I'll bring my scope of work to my contractors. I'll get 3 quotes now, and I'll say, hey, everything that I need in this scope of work, I want you to give me a bid, a quote on this property. Now, I know that I'm trying to hit $40,000 in a repair budget. I can tell the contractors, hey, I'm trying to hit $40,000 at maximum. If you can do it for less, awesome, I'll work with you. So one contractor might say, hey, you know what, I can do it at $50,000. Someone might say $38,000, and maybe a contractor comes back at $40,000. Well, I want to check the references of these contractors, and I want to make sure that they can do quality work. We should have done that already, but I want to double check once again, because the lowest price doesn't mean it's always the best contractor to go with. They may have shoddy work. They may have work that I don't like. They may have missed a lot of items. Let's just say this contractor has matched the price that I want on this particular deal, and I like his work. Well, we can just kick out the higher quote, and because we've got 3 quotes, we're now able to stay on budget with the contractor. We now know the best contractor to pick because they can follow our scope of work. And there's no lack of clarity because we've worked smarter and we've detailed every single item that we need. Now, what I wanted to give you, if you've never developed a scope of work, I want to give you one of our examples so that you can see the amount of detail you need to go into when you go to purchase and renovate a property, the type of detail you need with a contractor in order to get a deal on time and on budget and to have that clarity. So in order to get our free template of the scope of work, just go to realestateskills.com/scope and you'll be able to download that. Now, the goal here is that we have our contractor picked out so that the day that we close, 14 days later, we can start the work, right? We want to start the work immediately. We don't want to burn any days. We don't want to be finding our contractor after we buy the property, Because once again, you know those hard money loan costs now. You know those private money loan costs. Every single day that goes on, we have to pay money and interest. So because we do all of our work ahead of time, the day we buy the property, we can get started on the work. Now, if you've never flipped a house before too, one thing I do want to recommend is that you do get an actual inspector out to the property, a professional inspector, someone that can go through the property and also tell you every single thing that this property needs to be renovated. That way, nothing comes out of the blue for you. At this point in my career, we've done a lot of these types of flips. I do not need a property inspector to go out there. I can go walk the property myself or a team member, and we know what needs to be done in the property. But to protect yourself, because there's risk in fixing and flipping properties, I want you to get a property inspector if this is your first flip. That can cost anywhere from $200 to $500. And guess what? If that property inspector finds a lot more work needed on the property that you didn't anticipate, I'd rather eat $500 than lose $50,000 because I underestimated the repair budget. Make sense? Additionally, title and escrow and/or the closing attorney will put promissory notes on the property, which says, once you fix and flip this property, you owe the hard money lender the agreed upon interest rate that they lent you the money at. This is the collateral for the hard money lender. Now, additionally, if done the right way, the private money lender will have a note on the property too, saying that you owe them 10% interest rate in this particular scenario. And because in our offer terms, we put seller to deliver free and clear title, these companies will perform something called a title search report, making sure that you're not buying a property, any liens on it, or anything out of the ordinary, saying you owe $30,000 if you're gonna buy this property, right? We're buying a property with clear title. So at this phase, closing the property, you'll be able to take over the property, you'll be handed the keys, and then you can start the renovation. So let's go into the next step. Now we've closed the deal, it's time for step 11, which is renovate the deal. And I want you to protect yourself with these 6 essential documents that we have here. So you're gonna want an independent contractor agreement with your contractor stating your business relationship. Very important that you have this. We also want the final scope of work, exactly what we agreed upon, the work that the property needs on what's going to be done. This is the game plan. This is the blueprint of what's going to be done on this renovation so that everything on the property that's being renovated, they're not adding bells and whistles that we didn't talk about. They're not juicing up the renovation budget $20,000 because we're just letting them go off whatever they want to do, right? We actually have it defined here. So they need to stick to the final scope of work. Then we have a payment schedule. The payment schedule defines when they're getting paid and for what. So what my business partner Ryan always likes to say is we want to be ahead on work and behind on pay. We always want them to do the work. We check the work. We go there to the property, make sure everything's being done correctly, make sure that everything was done up to snuff and that everything in the scope of work was matched. Then we pay them for the next amount of work that they're going to be doing. So we have the payment schedule, and this dictates exactly what they're going to be working on and when they're going to be paid. So we want to pay them in tranches. So for example, the first payment to them might be $1,000. Then they do some work. Then we pay them for the next amount of work, which is $9K. Then we pay them for the next amount of work, $10K. Then the next, and then the final payment of $10K, which adds up to $40,000. We also need an insurance indemnification agreement saying that this contractor has the insurance that they need and we're not liable for anything that goes wrong on the property. They have their own insurance, it'll be taken care of. The W-9 is a legal document that we need to have. If we're paying an independent contractor more than $600 in a year, we need a W-9 filled out, so make sure to get that. Now, at the end of the project, once we're done renovating it, we're gonna have them sign a final lien waiver saying that they can't come after us for additional money. We want to protect ourselves. Everything that was done in the agreement was completed and they received all the money they need, and they can't put a lien on the property saying that we owe them money, the contractor that is. So this is the breakdown of the critical documents that we need. We know we're going to pay them $40,000 over time. You don't want to pay them $40,000 up front, right? That's not a great contractor, takes all your money. We've heard horror stories of contractors just taking all the money and running. So you want to make sure that you verify the work they're doing, following the scope of work to the T that we've already worked on, and now we're able to manage this renovation. Now, I recommend if it's your first flip, go to the property every couple days and check in on the property. One thing I like to do is go to the property and take care of the subcontractors. So the people laying the tile, the people doing the drywall, and bring them waters, bring them drinks, bring them snacks, bring them Coca-Colas. I believe if you take care of them, they'll take care of your property. So that's one little thing that you can do. Now, when we're renovating the property, keep in mind, this budget for this property is $40,000. The rule of thumb that I taught you is that for every $10,000 will be a week of renovation. So in total, schedule, this should take about 4 weeks if something doesn't come up that we didn't anticipate. And so keep in mind, things can't come up that you don't anticipate. A lot of the times we can miss things, or there could be things called change orders that we just have to adapt on the fly. And this budget can increase because of our lack of seeing the things that need to be fixed from the get-go. So this will happen more in the beginning when you're starting to renovate property. Over time, you'll be able to catch these items. Now, to give you an idea of the order of the rehab, right here we'll list everything from the framing to the roof to the soffit to the fascia to the HVAC to the electrical to sheetrock, everything we recommend on the order of the renovation so that you can keep it on time and on budget. Remember, the GC is the one in charge of the deal. If we've done a great amount of work and we have the scope of work and it's detailed and we have clarity and we have all the documentation that we need, we should be able to stay on budget and on time. So these are the most important documents. And if you need help with the scope of work, if you need help understanding how the heck should I renovate this property, I always want you to look at the comparable property, right? Because we're trying to match those comparable properties. So the ones that we found in this scenario that sold for $545 and $540, $550, look at those photos and find the actual items that are in that property. What type of flooring did they use? What type of countertops did they use? What type of cabinetry do they have? What are the colors of the walls on the interior and the exterior? What type of lighting fixtures did they have, right? If we mimic the comps, we're going to minimize our risk, and we're going to then develop a property that should be able to sell at the price that we want to sell. So that's an additional pro tip: renovate the property to what the comps are like. Now, I know this might be a lot. It might be like drinking from a fire hose. And so all of this documentation and the trainings on it, we include in our programs. And so if you're interested in learning more on how to fix and flip houses with our help, with our coaching, we do weekly coaching calls. We give you all the documentation and resources I've been talking about. Then all you need to do to get more information is go to realestateskills.com/apply. And you can book a call with our team and talk about our program. All right, congratulations. We're doing great. And now we're on step number 12, which is get it listing ready and put it on the MLS. So at this point in time, we're nearing the end of the renovation and we need to have a final punch list. So no matter how great your contractor is, there's typically a few items left on the property. There might be a cracked tile, there might be plastic still in the appliances, there might be some nicks in the walls that need to be painted over. And so this final punch list are the last items the contractor needs to do to polish off the property and make it great. So we want to make sure we achieve this final punch list, we walk through with the contractor and complete everything. Now at that point, we have staging, and if the property's not clean enough here, I'll actually get cleaners. We need to make sure this property is ready to have buyers walk through it. Now staging, if the comps have staging is when we put furniture in the property so that when a buyer walks through it, they get the emotional feelings as if they're going to live there and can start seeing themselves in the main bedroom, start seeing themselves in the living room and in the kitchen. So if the comps have staging, then I recommend getting staging. This is typically an expense from the real estate agent. And then for doing staging, we want to have professional photos. And even if we're not doing staging, we need professional photos. So just make sure if you're doing staging, we do that first, right? Now, I want you to see the quality that I think your photos should look like when you're listing a brand new renovated property. So a website you can check out is ranchophotos.com. That's a company that I've been using for over a decade, and they make our houses pop when we put them up for sale on the MLS. So go to ranchophotos.com, check out these professional photos. Don't use an iPhone. Don't take these photos by yourself. We need professional photos on this property to make sure it sells for top dollar, right? Because we have a goal to achieve here. We want to sell this property at $545,000. That was our ARV. So we need to do everything in our power to make sure that we can sell it for $545,000. Now our listing agent that we're going to have sell the property, we need to make sure that they have the for sale sign in the front yard so that everyone and the neighbors know that this house is for sale. We need to make sure that they're putting this house on the MLS with a great description describing the property and also putting it on websites like realtor.com, Zillow.com, and Redfin. We need to make sure our agent is scheduling open houses. That's when they hold the house open, and open houses are when they allow buyers, potential buyers, to walk through the property. So a lot of the times they're held on the weekends, and we want as many open houses as possible to get as many eyeballs on this property. And I want my real estate agent to also door knock the neighborhood or distribute mailers and flyers to everyone, seeing if anyone in the neighborhood wants their friends or family to move right by them down the street. I want my real estate agent posting this property on social media. So maybe they have an active Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. I don't care. I want them marketing this property wherever they can. And if they're a good agent, they probably have an email list. I want them to send this property out and let everyone know on their email list that we got a new listing, a beautiful brand new renovated property. And lastly, I want our real estate agent to attend something called broker caravans. This is actually where real estate brokers and real estate agents hang out during the week or on the weekends, drive around to the new up and coming properties that are coming on the market so that all of those agents can tell all of their buyers about this property coming up. We want as many eyeballs on the property as possible so that we can get the most amount of offers on this property, which allows us to negotiate and get the highest price possible. Now, a pro tip as a listing price strategy that I want to share with you is that we know we want the property to sell at $545,000, right? What I always like to do is list my property in a range, meaning it might be at $519,000 to $559,000. So right here, we have a $40,000 range. What this does is mask the price that I actually want to sell it at. What this does is allows us to get offers at a lower price range. It allows me to get more offers that I can then counter and have them bid against each other to get the highest price possible. This is a strategy I always like doing. Sometimes it allows me to get the top of the range, and sometimes it allows me just to hit my actual ARV that I need to hit. So it's masked in there, but this is a pro tip. Some MLSs allow you to do this and some don't. If you have the ability to do it, I recommend trying it out in order to get the most amount of offers on your property. Now we're on step number 13, which is field offers and negotiate. So at this point, if we listed the property at the correct price, we've done a great renovation, it's matching the comps. Now at this point, we should start getting offers around the prices that we want. Now you have some decisions to make with the offers that you're getting. You can reject some offers, you can counter an offer, you can counter multiple offers, and you can accept an offer. Now I believe that just flat out rejecting offers is a newbie move. I never really reject offers. I'm always going to counter them regardless. Maybe they can come up. Maybe they just gave me a low offer, and if I counter them, they can come up in a price. I love offers. I believe that an offer is better than no offer. Now, if we price this correctly, this property, and it's in this range, we may have got multiple offers. And what's great, if we got that offer at $519 at the bottom of the range, we have $529, let's just say in this range, $525, maybe we got $540, and we know we want to hit $545K. Well, I can send a multiple counter offer to all of these potential buyers and these agents and say, hey, send your highest and best. We have multiple amount of offers. Now I can say, send me your highest and best. They could go to the top of the range, 559 that I submitted. Some people may choose to not come up at all, but let's just say our 545 offer says, hey, you know what? I'll come up to 545K. And let's say this is the best offer that we have. Now at this point, we can accept. So we did the negotiating here. We can negotiate, we can go back and forth, but if it's really listed well, the renovation's done well, we've done everything we needed to do, great description, our agent's great marketing the property, we should be able to get the price that we want at 545 and accept this offer. And once we accept the offer, we can go to the next step and we're that much closer to closing this fix and flip. All right, step number 14 is accept the offer. And this is when the timelines start for the new buyer. They're gonna do their due diligence. So just like we did on the front end when we did our 7-day inspection period, a normal homeowner who's gonna be offering on this property and getting a first-time home buyer loan or conventional loan, their typical inspection period, depending on how aggressive they are, can be anywhere from 10 to 17 days. We'll see that happen. And they're gonna get a home inspector out to the property to, once again, make sure that everything was done up to code, up to snuff, and that nothing is out of the ordinary in the property. What they see is what they're actually getting. Now, the EMD is going to be due within 3 days. Remember, this is the earnest money deposit. We want to make sure that our buyer is putting that in. It's also called a good faith deposit, meaning that everything is going according to plans. This can raise red flags if they don't put the EMD in within a few days. But in this scenario, let's say they absolutely do put that in. We then have the inspection, and what's going to happen is they're going to get an appraisal. And an appraisal is when an appraiser comes out to the property to verify that the purchase price that they are offering is going to match up with the comps in the area. So remember, I taught you how to find comps. And our comps dictated the price we wanted to sell this at, our ARV, our after repair value. So the way that I taught you that comp criteria is actually how an appraiser values property. So now, if we've done everything correctly, we're not going to have an appraiser say, hey, this property is actually worth $500,000. We know it's worth $545,000 because we found the comps at 540, 545, and 550. So in the scenario where you don't know how to run your ARV, and even if you got an offer at a higher price, if the appraiser appraised it at $500,000, what that means is that the buyer would need to come up with an additional $45,000. That difference between what is appraised at and then what we're selling the property at. So you don't want that to happen because that can absolutely blow up a deal. What happens then is you then have to put the property back on the market, and some people aren't willing to bring the difference to the table of what the property appraised at and what we're trying to sell it for. So because we work smarter, not harder, and I taught you how to analyze the property correctly, the appraisal should go well. And a pro tip that I want you to know is that attending the appraisal, you or your agent can actually help ensure that it gets appraised at 545. What I've done in the past is actually attend the appraisal and bring comps. Bring the comps that justify the value of the property. I bring the comps and I give them to the appraiser and I say, just in case you haven't seen these comps, I want to give them to you. And that just helps me feel better and allows me to have the highest likelihood that we're going to hit that appraisal number that we need on the property. Now, during this process, with the home inspector, what usually comes up, the home inspector will find a few items that maybe we miss on the punch list with the contractor, and the buyer will then put in a request for repairs. And the request for repairs can say something like, there's loose fixtures on the wall, there's loose lighting fixtures, or the cabinets aren't closing properly and you need to fix them. So we can then have our contractor go to the property and fix those items, or we can give the buyer a credit, such as $500 or $1,000 to fix those items themselves. So if it's a small fix, if we have a good relationship with our contractor, we can get them out there, have them do the fixes, or we can just pay a credit, whatever you decide at this point in time. I want to do whatever is going to make the buyer happy because I want to close this deal now. So if I can go out and fix the property and I can save some money instead of giving them a credit, I'm going to go ahead and do that. If it's a bigger fix and just giving them a credit is better because now I don't have to get my contractor out there and now it's not a headache because it was a bigger fix, I'll just give them $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is to fix that. So once the property appraises, once we do the request for repairs, once it passes the inspection, we're going to do something called a final walkthrough. Typically a day or two before we close on the property, the buyer, the agent, everyone wants to make sure that the house hasn't burned down, that we're actually closing on a property and what we agreed upon they're going to get. So we do the final walkthrough a day or two before closing. Now on the day of closing, once again, all the money is going to be wired to escrow and title or the closing attorney, and all the respective parties are going to be paid. So the buyer will get a mortgage and that bank will then bring the funds to escrow, title, the closing attorney. Then the real estate agent will be paid their commission. All the closing costs will be handled through the closing parties, the escrow, the title, the attorney. And additionally, remember our hard money lenders and private money lenders, they'll be paid back their principal plus their interest that they lent on the deal. At the end of the day, we'll get something called a HUD. It's the closing document that's going to have all the expenses and then our profit on the deal at the end of the day. And now step number 15, it's officially close on the deal and get paid. So if we did everything correctly, you should have hit the aimed profit of $40,000. Now, even if you don't hit that, you still flipped a house. You still borrowed good debt and were able to make a profit because of your real estate investing skills. Now, this is something we absolutely love helping people to get started with. We love teaching wholesaling. We love teaching fixing and flipping. We love teaching how to reinvest the capital you make from real estate into buy and hold properties so you can get a passive income. Specifically on fixing and flipping property, how we help people is we give them all of the training, so the in-depth training. Today was just a sneak peek of what we do. We give them all the resources, so all the resources I covered today and even more, the tools and the systems in order to get started, increase your likelihood of success. And we also have weekly coaching, hours of coaching to help analyze your deals and to help you get started so you don't make the same mistakes that we've done across 12 years and increase that likelihood of success. Now, lastly, what this allows you to do is leverage a team, our team that's been active in doing deals, not only in California, but in multiple different states. And so if you want to know what it looks like to work with a team like us, all you need to do is go to realestateskills.com/apply, and you'll be able to speak with one of my expert advisors on what program would be a good fit for you to get started fixing and flipping houses. So I'll talk to you soon. It's Alex Martinez with realestateskills.com. Now, one of the biggest reasons beginners lose money on their first flip is bad renovation estimates that just completely miss the mark. I see it all the time. If you underestimate the renovation, the entire deal can fall apart. But if you understand the renovation, then the entire deal can be pretty lucrative giving you the best chance for success. So in this next section, Stan from the Real Estate Skills team is going to show you how we estimate rehab costs almost on any house pretty darn quickly and accurately, so you can analyze these deals with confidence and get the largest profit possible.
So let's go over the 3 ways to estimate rehab costs. Number 1, using general contractors. Number 2, estimating the renovation costs using the square footage method. And number 3, using the line item by line item approach. Strategy number 1 to estimating rehab costs is working with general contractors. General contractors are licensed professionals who can manage or have a crew to renovate the entire fix and flip project, as opposed to subcontractors who specialize in one type of trade, such as electrical or doing roofs. A great reason to use general contractors to get renovation quotes is because you're working with a licensed professional who estimates rehab costs for a living. They should be familiar with putting together a detailed quote you can use to negotiate a contract on a potential deal. Also, having a quote from a professional licensed contractor will add credibility when it comes time to ask for a price reduction on homes you might be negotiating, as opposed to you telling an agent or seller what you think it's going to cost. It makes it hard for someone to dispute the cost of renovations when it's coming from a licensed contractor as opposed to a biased investor who of course wants to show the highest possible renovation cost. This method should be used by new investors as well as investors who have long-standing relationships with contractors you can rely on and offload the time-consuming work of putting together a quote onto somebody else. Although if you are new and you ask a contractor to constantly quote projects that never turn into any work, they will stop producing quotes or charge you for those quotes because it does take a lot of time. When I first moved to South Carolina, I picked a specific neighborhood I was going to live in and renovate. And to get my contractor database built up, I walked around on other projects in my neighborhood and met my first group of contractors that way. And that's how I was able to start on renovations so quickly after moving to a whole new state, because this is an easy method to find and hire contractors. I was driving around and meeting subcontractors and asking them if they can introduce me to the general contractors that hired them for that job. And here are 3 ways to find general contractors to work with. Number 1, go to your local real estate group where there are contractors at the group, or ask other investors there for referrals. Number 2, drive in neighborhoods where you want to do fix and flip projects and stop at active renovations to meet contractors working there. And number 3, join Facebook investment groups specific to your area and ask for referrals. Now let's talk about the steps on how to work with a general contractor to estimate rehab costs. Step number 1, meet the general contractor at your project and tell them exactly what you want done. Step number 2, usually within a day to a week, they will give you a detailed estimate including material and labor on what it's going to cost to complete that project. Step number 3, take your detailed quote and use it to negotiate a good deal with the seller or agent you're working with. And step number 4, once you got the project and it's ready to go, line up a construction schedule to map out when to start and how you expect the work to be done. Now let's talk about strategy number 2, estimating renovations using square footage. You can use the square footage of the home you're looking to renovate to find out how much it will cost to renovate that home. Now this is an average based on the condition of the home. Overall homes in good shape that just need a little bit of flooring and paint can be an average of $10 a square foot. If the home is in overall good shape but is really outdated, then we can estimate our average level of renovation, which comes out to about $30 a square foot. And finally, if the home is in horrible shape and everything needs to be done, as a quick guide, the cost will be about $60 per square foot as our total renovation budget. This method is great to use when you need to quickly decide if the home that is listed for sale is close to the ballpark where you need to make your offer. This allows you to quickly jump on making an offer on houses that have been priced well for an investor. And also this allows you to get more offers out and ultimately get more deals. You do not have to spend hours analyzing a property, you can spend seconds or minutes. This method should be used by everybody, especially wholesalers and fix and flippers. Whether you are a beginner just getting started or an experienced wholesaler trying to get out more offers. As a new investor, it allows you to avoid a common beginner mistake, paralysis by analysis, which is spending too much time analyzing deals without actually submitting any offers. As the great Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. This method allows you to make lots of offers quickly, increasing your chances of success. When I was growing my business and doing a lot of fix and flip deals, I looked at how much we were spending on average renovations. I used the price per square foot method to analyze more deals and submit offers in a shorter period of time. Let me caution you though, you need to double and triple check your numbers with this method once your offer does get accepted, because this method is a way to estimate a ballpark of what the cost should be. But ultimately, until you look at the house, this method should be used just to make your initial offer. Now let's go over the 4 steps on how to use the square footage method to estimate rehab costs. Step number 1, determine the property's square footage. You can do this by asking your real estate agent, checking on Redfin or Zillow to see how many square foot the house is, but be careful because it's not always accurate. Or you can check on county tax records, which are going to be your most accurate resource. Step 2, go to the property or look at pictures of the property online to see what condition it's in. Step number 3, you would then apply your multiplier based on it needing a light, medium, or heavy renovation to the property square footage to get your estimate. And finally, step number 4, submit your offer based on your renovation estimate and start negotiating. And strategy number 3 for estimating renovation costs is using the detailed line item by line item approach. This approach is when you go through your scope of work, which details exactly what needs to be done to the house, and you put a cost to each and every one of those items to come up with a total renovation cost. You can do this by calling general contractors and subcontractors and ask what they would charge to do every part of your scope of work. Unlike relying on a single contractor to give you a quote, with this method you can call different subcontractors for each line item and get quotes for each of them. You can call 3 electricians and get a good quote on your electrical work. And then you can call 3 plumbers and get a good price on your plumbing work. Whereas a general contractor has a set of subcontractors they normally work with, such as 1 electrician or 1 plumber they like, and they will not try to negotiate the price down with each one of those people. Or the general contractor will add a fee for themselves on top of each one of those trades, making it a lot more expensive than hiring them directly. This method is best used for experienced professionals who have established relationships with many contractors. That way, you can call different contractors for each part of your scope of work to get the best pricing. Or you already know from having existing relationships what each one of them charges for each part of your scope of work. For example, whenever I am buying a renovation and coming up with a budget for that project, I can call multiple electricians if the entire house needs to be rewired and let them compete against each other through bidding on that part of the project. Let's go through the 4 steps of how to do the line item by line item approach. Step number 1, write a detailed scope of work, which again is a list of everything you want done at the house. Step number 2, if you're new, you have to build a list of multiple contractors if you don't already have one for each one of those line items, such as 3 electricians to give you electrical rewiring quotes. Step number 3, either meet different contractors at the home to show them what you want done, or if possible, send them a detailed description and ask them if they can give you an estimate based on pictures and a detailed scope of work. And finally, step 4, put your individual quotes into your scope of work to come up with a total renovation budget. Now that we talked about 3 ways of estimating your rehab costs, let's go over 3 common mistakes investors make when creating their renovation budget. Mistake number 1, when you're estimating rehab costs, you underestimate your renovation budget. This mistake happens when investors purposely lower their total budget to try to make the deal work and expect their contractors and project managers to figure out how to make that number work. And because project managers and contractors rarely know how to make that type of magic happen, it's better to use the renovation budget that a contractor gives you and that you come up with using the detailed line item by line item process. Our second mistake that beginners make when estimating the rehabs is overlooking hidden issues. This mistake happens when investors do a simple walkthrough by themselves or with a contractor to come up with a scope of work and do not look in the attic, under the house, and all the other nooks and crannies where all the hidden issues could be hiding. Besides walking through the house with an experienced professional who knows what they're looking at, make sure to do a full home inspection, a termite inspection, and if you live in some parts of the country, do a radon inspection during your due diligence or before you buy the house. Because project managers and contractors rarely know how to make that type of magic happen, to avoid this mistake, it's better to use the renovation budget that a contractor gives you or that you came up with using the detailed line item by line item process. Mistake number 3 when estimating rehab costs is having a lack of contingency funds. This is a mistake that investors make when they come up with a cost to do their project that doesn't take into account extra money to cover unforeseen or unexpected issues during the renovation process. No matter how detailed of an inspection you do, there is no way to avoid extra costs that might come up from such things such as theft, maybe a contractor dropping expensive material and breaking it, or issues coming up behind closed walls you would never know unless you rip the walls open, which of course you can't do unless you own the home. And to avoid this mistake, depending on the size of the project, you should always build in a minimum of 10% of contingency budget if it's a small renovation, and up to 25% if it's a major rip it apart down to the studs and start over renovation. To recap, let's go over the 3 ways to estimate your rehab costs. Number 1, estimating rehab costs using a general contractor. Number 2, estimating rehab costs using the square footage method. And number 3, using the line item by line item approach. By using these strategies while avoiding the common mistakes I mentioned, you'll be able to negotiate the best price for your project. Be sure to download our free resource in the description to start getting accurate estimates. And check out our free training on how to wholesale and flip houses as well. And if you like what you see in the video, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more great real estate content.
Now that you understand how to estimate renovation costs like a pro, let's talk about something that stops a lot of people from getting started. Now, a lot of beginners think they need a real estate license before they can even start flipping houses. So in this next section, Stan and I are going to break down how licensing actually works in real estate investing, along with some important pros and cons you need to know in order to be the best investor possible. Do you need a real estate license to flip houses?
I mean, the answer is absolutely no. You do not need one. It's not required by law. Are there some pros and cons? Sure, but no, you really don't need one. In most areas, a real estate license is needed when you sell a house that you don't own, right? So you're selling a house for somebody else, a friend, a family. Now, maybe you can help them throw it on Facebook, you can, right? But when it comes to negotiating other people's homes, typically a license is required.
Yeah, that's a common misconception because people think if you're a real estate investor, you need a license. You don't need a license to sell your own property because you can hire a real estate agent who's licensed so that they can put it on the MLS. That's really, when you flip a house, typically you want to put it on the MLS, the multiple listing service, which is the database where all real estate agents and brokers use it to look at property. Typically gets syndicated and pushed out to redfin.com, Zillow.com. It gets the most eyeballs on your renovated property. And you don't need a real estate license to flip houses. Now, I've had my real estate license at times. There are some benefits to it. There are some disadvantages to it. So let's talk about that.
Me on this side, working a lot of times with sellers, because of that, I've never opted to get it. Because having a real estate license gives you a fiduciary duty when someone reaches out to you about selling their home, whether it's to you or in general, you have to give them the best possible advice, right? Because you're licensed by the real estate association in your local area, and that kind of becomes your fiduciary duty. Now, that's kind of a gray area, but you never want to get into a situation where, you know, a unsophisticated seller calls you and says, hey, I just inherited this house, someone passed away, they're kind of in an emotional state, it's a lot, it's overwhelming, and you try to take advantage and you get that house from them. That is an easy lawsuit willing to happen. Because as a licensed real estate professional, you're basically telling the world you know what you're talking about, you've taken the classes, and you probably should have guided this person in a different way than trying to take advantage of them.
So that separation of fiduciary duty is important.
Yeah.
And it gets kind of gray when you do have your real estate license because you have your real estate investor cap on, you're trying to make as much money as possible, But when you put your real estate agent cap on, you have that responsibility to the client. And so that's where it does get gray. Clear communication is important. Number one rule, if you are licensed, disclose, disclose, disclose. We always talk about that. Disclose that you're a real estate agent. And it is okay to be a real estate investor while having your license still. If in a particular deal you just want to be a real estate investor, still disclose your real estate agent and act that you're acting as a principal in the transaction, just so those lines are very clear and nothing is blended, nothing is gray.
Yeah, but like we said before, there are a lot of benefits to having your license. When you buy houses, you can get a commission by representing yourself on the purchase. If you decide to sell your own fix and flip house, then you can charge a commission and you get immediate access to the MLS without having to work with a realtor, right, to get that access.
And I've definitely flipped houses while I was licensed, and I received a buyer's commission on the front end.
Yeah.
Flipped the house, so I received the flip profit, and then also was the listing agent and got a nice commission too. It's nice getting all those things. It is an extra tool in your tool belt. Like, there are benefits to it. Just having those clear lines, that clear distinction is pretty important. And so it really is like a matter of personal opinion. I think if you want to be a real estate investor and real estate agent, then go do it. Just know the nuances. When I got my real estate agent's license, it's because I wanted to understand the perspective of a real estate agent even more. I wanted to know what it was like to hold open houses.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what they went through. I want to know what it was like listing properties. I wanted to know what it was like representing buyers, because as an investor, I love working with real estate agents, and it allowed me to develop that empathy and talk to them even better. And now I understand the whole entire process, and nothing's convoluted.
On that note, right, because you had the license and you represented yourself, you had to do all those things. The open house, the marketing. So that took away time from your fix and flip business.
It did.
Yeah, so it's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to that.
And looking back now, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. I learned so much and made some money. But if you truly want to be the best at something, you don't want to chase too many rabbits. Focus is so important. If you're flipping a house and you want to get another project and another project, now you're also raising money. And if you're the agent on the property, you're going to get 20 phone calls, you're going to get 10 offers, and you got to respond to all those offers. And you have to be a real estate agent and can slow down your fix and flip business if you just want to be a real estate investor. And that's such a good point, because I've seen so many people get caught up in it. I've been caught up in it. So you just got to weigh those benefits and the opportunity cost, because sometimes it's hard to turn down 2.5% commission on the relist, especially when you're starting out and you don't have a lot of deal flow. That's why I did it at first. It was like, let me just, get some extra cash, get in the door. But then very quickly, I learned that the opportunity cost of 2.5% commission, I could make much more in the next fix and flip.
Yeah, but also, like you said, if you don't have a lot of deal flow, by getting your license, you're committing yourself to continuous fees every month. Brokerage will charge you monthly desk fees. They'll charge you fees for having MLS access, right? They're going to charge you fees for having those electronic lock boxes. And you're also going to have to do continuing education every year. Plus, to get your license, it's going to take classes. It's going to cost a bunch of money. So it's not just as simple as getting it. And like you said, if you don't have a lot of deal flow, that means you're not focused on your fix and flip business. And so you're kind of sacrificing the potential growth of your fix and flip business to become an agent at the same time. So now you're doing two different things and nothing is going to scale quickly. Now, so going back to the pros and cons of having your license, just to kind of quickly summarize, by having your license, you can get a commission when you buy a house or sell a house. You get instant access to the MLS, and you get instant access to a lot of realtors in an office where you hang your license. But on the other side, if you work directly with sellers, you might have to disclose, or you definitely have to disclose, that you are a licensed agent, right? Which means you can't sometimes get the best possible deal if it's not in the best interest of that seller. Right? You're going to have monthly fees you're going to have to pay for, and it might be a big distraction from growing your fix and flip business.
Well, there you have it, right? The pros and cons of getting your real estate license. And first off, we answered the question, do you even need your real estate license to flip houses? And you don't. So we don't want you to be misguided. We want you to know you can focus on being a real estate investor. You can focus on being a house flipper, and you do not need your real estate license. But now you're aware of the pros, you're aware of the cons, so you can be a successful real estate investor. Thanks for joining in. Please like, comment, hit the notification bell, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And we'll see you on realestateskills.com. Take care. Now that we've answered some of the most common beginner questions around flipping houses, let's talk about how we as investors actually structure our business. Now, I'm sure you've heard it, and if not, you'll hear it all the time. You're gonna hear about setting up an LLC. So in this next section, Stan and I break down what an LLC is, why we use an LLC to flip houses, and how simple it can be to set one up. Let's dive in. Do you need an LLC to flip houses? And so I'll start with that by law, you do not need an LLC to flip houses, but we highly recommend it. You definitely want an LLC. And so first off, let's talk about what is an LLC so everyone knows.
Yeah, an LLC is a limited liability company. This is a type of business that you can start. One of several options, but this is the most common one. And what a lot of people do will start an LLC and put all their houses in LLCs when they buy them and fix and flip to basically limit the liability, which is what LLC stands for, limited liability company. It will limit your liability in case anything goes wrong in or with your project, so it doesn't affect your personal assets or your personal money.
Yeah, every property I've ever flipped has been in an LLC for that particular reason. You want to limit your liability. We live in the USA, and it's one of the most litigious countries in the world. Anyone can sue anyone. And so the LLC, if someone tries to sue you or something goes wrong, it makes it difficult to pierce this corporate veil for them to actually sue you personally and go after your personal assets, because no one wants that. You want to be protected. And a mentor of mine said, hey, Alex, if you want to be in business, go start a business. And an LLC is a business. And so that's why we recommend it for everyone.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb, if you have your properties in an LLC and you do all the right things, you should be protected personally. Where an LLC does not protect you is if you did something or didn't do something that you should have and you knew that, right? So here's an example. So you schedule your electrician right after the rest of your trades are done renovating the property. And the property hasn't been cleaned up, there's nails everywhere, you know it's super dangerous, and you didn't tell them, right? Or in a better example, because an electrician is more of a professional person, you allow someone that's maybe interested in buying the home to go look at it when it's in a state of really severe construction, there's hazards everywhere, and they step on a nail, severely cut themselves because something was left out. In that case, you should have known it's probably not safe for someone that's not a professional contractor and you have no indemnification agreement signed with them to go in that property. Right, then even if you have it in an LLC, it will not protect you. So an LLC is a good vehicle to protect yourself from the things that can go wrong that are really not your fault, right? So if a contractor's employee hurts themselves, right? Sure, they're gonna try to sue you, but they can't get your personal assets, it's not your fault. It stops at the LLC. Whatever the LLC does not own is what they can't touch.
So we covered the why you want an LLC, to really protect yourself, protect your family, protect your assets. Let's get into the how. So how can you start an LLC if you want to get one?
Yeah, I mean, most states make it relatively easy to start an LLC. Not all, but most do. So a lot of states, if you search your state in Google, start an LLC or start a business, usually the state website and the places I've worked have relatively been easy. Usually it's only a couple pages, you send a little bit of money and you get it started. But if you're not comfortable with that, or you live in a state where there's a lot of processes, a lot of steps, a lot of attorneys will have like a flat fee package just to get it started for you, and that could be an easier option. You might pay an extra couple of $100, not much, but that's the easiest route to go.
Yeah, I've used the California state government website to start an LLC. I've used an attorney to start an LLC. I've used LegalZoom to start an LLC. Yep. And then also we like this company called Prime Corporate Services as well. We'll put a link in the description. They'll help you set up an LLC. It's been my favorite way to set it up. So it's pretty simple to do it. You just need to bite the bullet. You need to just go ahead and do it. Protect yourself. There's really not a risk to doing it. It does cost some money. Like when I used an attorney before, I paid them $1,500. LegalZoom might be a few $100s. But it's well worth it for the protection that you get. It's like, there's really no risk. It's the smart thing to do. Any company that's traded publicly, they're a corporation or an LLC to some degree. It's just what you need to do to be in business. And people are gonna take you serious. If you wanna be a real estate investor and have a real estate investment company, you need to create a company. Right. If you're just using your own personal name, you're going to leave yourself at risk, and you're just not going to be treated as seriously by investors and by agents, by anyone that you work with.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind, if you do start an LLC in any state, you're going to be required to file taxes in the state and federally. So it is going to cost you a little bit of extra money to do that.
And there's also a lot of benefits too of creating an LLC, of creating a business. You get put in different tax brackets, whereas with personal income, you're going to be taxed at the highest rate, but you get different tax breaks when you start a company. You can have different write-offs when you have a company.
That's a great point.
You can get business credit as well. You know, we leverage business credit all the time for renovations, for house flips, for anything that we need to use. You can use those business credit cards, get points. There's a lot of fun things you can do with it. And if you want to build a business, have employees, you run payroll through your business. There's all these benefits to doing it if you want to actually be in this business and build a scalable business for years to come.
Yeah, and there's a lot of banks now that are, like you said, providing business credit. Like I know I have several Chase credit cards, and those credit cards don't show up on my personal credit, so it's not affecting my scores. Yeah, so it's just another way of getting access to money, but also limiting your liability when it comes to all the things that can go wrong when fixing and flipping a house.
Perfect. So I think we covered pretty well the what, the why, the how.
Yep.
You know, why you need an LLC, why you should get one, why it's recommended, why you want to protect yourself. And just want to answer this question for the community because it's one we get pretty much every day, every single week.
I have never not done it in an LLC, and I don't recommend anyone does either.
Well, not much more left to say.
Yep.
So awesome. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like it, comment, subscribe. Please check out realestateskills.com. We'll have more awesome content for you all about wholesaling, flipping houses, and buying rental properties. See you soon. Hey, congratulations for making it all the way through this masterclass. You're my type of person because now you understand exactly how flipping houses works all the way from start to finish. And you now know how to find great distressed houses that are perfect to fix and flip, how to analyze these properties correctly and like a pro, how to estimate and manage the renovation, and then how to structure your business like the LLC to maximize your profit. And now the goal is simple. Take what you've learned here, don't let it go in one ear out the other, and use what you've learned to get that first deal in the next 90 days. And if you'd like help from my team and I getting your first or next deal, just check out the free training below at realestateskills.com/training. And I'll show you case studies of investors across the country that we've helped to flip houses for active income. And then I'll show you how to roll those profits that you make from your LLC into rental properties to get passive income. Now, after the free training, you can book a free call with my team and I, and we'll see if we're a good fit to work together, and we can help you close more deals faster and with way less mistakes. Now, if you enjoyed this masterclass, make sure to subscribe to the channel because we release new videos every single week on the best content when it comes to flipping houses. And then leave a comment with your favorite golden nugget that you learned from this masterclass. I'll be sure to reply. If you haven't yet, be sure to save this video because you're gonna wanna come back to this again and again and again. There's 14 years plus of mistakes in here, trial and error, so don't make the same mistakes I did. Learn from this so you can get that next deal in the next 90 days. I hope you enjoyed today's masterclass. Happy house flipping. I'll see you on the inside, and let's close some deals.